Chapter 81. A Sinister Idea. Just as Wang Guifin was about to pounce on Jiang Muming, the latter didn't flinch. Instead, as the former drew close, Jiang Muming met her head-on with a punch. I'll fight you. Wang Guifin had hoped to use their numbers to overwhelm Jiang Muming, but she had underestimated the fact that Jiang Muming was adept at fighting. Plus, with the continuous consumption of the spiritual spring water, her physical strength was significantly improved. Jiang Muming was agile, dodging their attacks while swiftly grabbing the feather duster from the cabinet. With a weapon in hand, Jiang Muming felt like she had opened a floodgate of power, whacking at the two women repeatedly. The feather duster landed with resounding thwacks on their bodies. Not only that, but Jiang Muming also mixed kicks with the strikes, her movements quick, ruthless, and precise, causing the two women to shriek in pain. 10 minutes later, Qin Muye, defeated, begged for mercy. Second sister-in-law, I was wrong. Please don't hit me anymore. Jiang Muming stopped her actions, pointing the feather duster at Wang Guifin. What about you? Wang Guifin covered her mouth. Jiang Muming's previous kick had sent her crashing into the edge of the table, her mouth now full of blood. You're ruthless. Wait until the second boy comes home. See how he deals with you. Jiang Muming's eyebrows curved in amusement. Oh dear, I'm so scared. I'll be waiting then. Seeing her provocative expression, Wang Guifin's face turned green with rage. Wash the dishes and chopsticks, clean the house, and tidy up all this mess. If it's still a mess when I wake up, don't blame me for being impolite. With a smile, Jiang Muming patted the dust off her clothes and briskly walked out of the room. Wang Guifin spat out the blood from her mouth and slumped to the ground. This is a curse. How did I end up with such a vicious daughter-in-law? Qin Muye secretly rejoiced that she hadn't been wearing her newly bought dress. Otherwise, her new skirt would have been soiled. Mom, let's clean up. We can't beat her, Qin Muye said, standing up. I'm sore all over from the beating. I need to lie down in bed. Wan, it's all up to you. Qin Muye was surprised. But Mom, how can I do all that alone? Besides, I'm in pain too. I'm your mother. If you don't listen, I'll return your clothes, Wang Guifin threatened. Qin Muye's face turned pale, and she quietly lowered her head. I understand. Wang Guifin limped away, and Qin Muye, resentful, straightened the overturned chairs. If Mom hadn't said we were going to gang up on her, I wouldn't have gotten beaten. Honestly, Qin Muye complained. Wang Guifin left the main hall. The more she thought about it, the more she couldn't swallow her anger. That wretched woman actually hit me. She's gone too far. No, I must get rid of Jiang Muming as soon as possible so Gu Manli can enter our family. Her eyes darted around, an insidious idea forming in Wang Guifin's mind. She turned and walked out of the front gate. After tidying up the house, Qin Muye, seeing that Wang Guifin wasn't home, decided to go find Gu Manli. She remembered Gu Manli saying that she would be reporting to the military unit at 2 p.m. Changing into her newly purchased dress, Qin Muye arrived at Gu's residence. Zhang Haiteng was chatting with some of the other wives from the military district when she saw Qin Muye, her face showing surprise. Are you Commander Qin's younger sister? Qin Muye smiled and approached her politely. Madam, hello. I'm Qin Muye. Is Sister Gu Manli here? Yes, she is. Zhang Haiteng said, then told her nanny, go and call Manli. Yes, madam. The nanny quickly walked towards Gu Manli's room. Commander Qin's sister is quite pretty, Zhang Haiteng praised with a smile. Qin Muye blushed a little and politely replied, thank you for the compliment, madam. While waiting, two men came out from the inner room. Commander Lu is out. Looks like they've reached an agreement, Zhang Haiteng said to the woman beside her. Qin Muye looked at the two men. One was about 50 or 60 years old and should be the rumored Commander Gu. The other was about 30, with slightly dark skin, but the aura of a soldier still evident. She had once looked down on 30-year-old men, but after being brainwashed by Wang Guifin, she no longer saw their age as a problem. Commander, thank you for your help. Commander Lu bowed to Gu Chongjing. Gu Chongjing patted his shoulder. It's all right. I'll help with this matter. Thank you, Commander, Commander Lu said, then looked at the middle-aged woman standing beside Zhang Haiteng. The woman hurriedly came to Commander Lu's side, and they left together. As they passed Qin Muye, Commander Lu's gaze fell on her, and he gave her a slight smile as a greeting. Qin Muye was startled, and she returned the smile. Just then, Gu Manli came out of her room and said warmly, little sister, you're here. Let's talk inside. Qin Muye took back her gaze and looked at her with anticipation. Okay. Gu Manli understandingly took Qin Muye's hand, and led her into the house. Seeing this, Zhang Haitang was surprised. When did Monli become so close with Commander Qin's sister? Sister Monli, about the marriage introduction you promised, how is it going? Qin Wan asked expectantly. Gu Monli held her hand and said gently, I've made inquiries. There aren't many unmarried non-commissioned officers in our unit. There's only one squad leader, about 25 years old, and he's still unmarried. Hearing this, Qin Wan frowned. 25 and still a squad leader? His rank is too low, and he's almost as old as my second brother. Commander Qin is a legend in our unit. It's hard to find a man like him in the army, Gu Monli said softly. Are there no other suitable men? Not in the army. Maybe with a bit of wealth? Qin Wan continued to ask, You're the military commander's niece. You must know many with good circumstances. A flash of contempt crossed Gu Monli's eyes, but she still wore a friendly smile. I'll ask around again. Qin Wan took her hand and said gratefully, Thank you, Sister Monli. You're so kind. No wonder my mother likes you so much. She really hopes you could marry my second brother. Gu Monli lowered her eyes. Don't talk nonsense. Commander Qin is already married. I wouldn't do anything to break up a family. Sister Monli, if you're willing to help me, my mom will deal with Jiang Muming, Qin Wan said with a smile. Hearing this, a warm smile appeared on Gu Monli's face. If Wang Guifan succeeded, then her effort in bringing her here would not have been in vain. The next day at noon, Jiang Muming came out of her room. As she walked into the main hall, she saw a strange man inside. The man was wearing a military green shirt and baggy pants. His hair was messy, and he looked to be in his 30s. He looked at her, his eyes flashing with surprise. Who is this man? Jiang Muming frowned. Today, when I went to buy vegetables, I ran into a thief who stole my money, but this comrade happened to help me get it back. So, I've invited him for a meal, Wang Guifan said with a smile. The man grinned, revealing yellow teeth. Auntie, no need to be so polite. It was just a small thing. You helped me get my money back, of course. I need to thank you properly. It's just another pair of chopsticks, said Wang Guifan. With Wang Guifan's warm welcome, the man sat down at the dining table. Wan, go and serve the rice, Wang Guifan called. Qin Wan walked towards the kitchen. Seeing Qin Wan bring out 4 bowls of rice, Jiang Muming was suspicious. She felt that Wang Guifan was acting strangely today. The 4 of them sat down, and then they started eating. While eating, Jiang Muming kept a watchful eye on Wang Guifan, trying to figure out what she was up to. But the whole process seemed quite normal. Jiang Muming ate her meal, and then got up to go back to her room. Seeing her leave, Wang Guifan glanced at the man, giving him a signal with her eyes. The man nodded with a smile, and began to shovel the food into his mouth. Jiang Muming had a habit of taking a midday nap. After lunch, she went back to her room to lie down. Today the weather was somewhat muggy and hot. Just as she was hesitating about turning on the electric fan, a shadowy figure sneaked into the room and locked the latch on the inside. Chapter 82. A Ruthless Move. Jiang Muming had just opened her eyes when the face of the strange man from before appeared before her. How did you get in here? Jiang Muming shouted loudly. The man chuckled, unfastening his belt as he smiled. Seeing this, Jiang Muming was shocked and tried to get up, but the man had already lunged at her. Help! Jiang Muming shrieked in fear. You're so pretty, the man said with a lewd smile, and as he tried to kiss her, Jiang Muming unexpectedly stabbed his eyes with her fingers. Ah! The man cried out in pain. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Jiang Muming kicked him away and scrambled to her feet. Running to the door, Jiang Muming quickly opened the latch. Just as she was about to open the door, she found it locked from the outside. Seeing this, Jiang Muming slammed on the door in shock. Open the door! Wang Guifan, Qin Wan, open the door. But the people outside seemed not to hear her. The door remained firmly shut. Jiang Muming was furious. She never expected them to be so direct. As she pounded on the door, the man had recovered from the pain and grabbed her shoulder. Bitch, you dare resist. Don't worry, I'll make you feel comfortable soon enough, the man said fiercely. Jiang Muming hit him on his face, but the difference in strength between a man and a woman was too great. She quickly grabbed something from the dressing table and threw it at him. Wang Guifan, you're a bastard. Qin Muye won't let you off. Jiang Muming yelled loudly. Outside, Wang Guifan sat with her legs crossed, calmly listening to Jiang Muming's desperate cries. Qin Wan was a bit worried. Mom, is this really okay? You're making second brother wear a green hat. When second brother comes back, he won't forgive you. Wang Guifan was calm. We will say that we didn't know anything, that we didn't know this man would do this. As long as Jiang Muming is no longer pure, the second boy won't like her anymore. By then, we will be able to drive Jiang Muming away. Wang Guifan said smugly, feeling that she was too smart for having thought of this idea. After all, who would think that a mother-in-law would find a way to make her daughter-in-law give her son a cuckold? Qin Wan was somewhat anxious, judging from Jiang Muming's reaction. I don't know if that man can handle her. It would be great if Jiang Muming could be severely punished, but she was afraid that they would fail and get caught up in the trouble. Don't worry, those hoodlums have brute strength, Wang Guifan said smugly. We will stay here, just in case of any accidents. Qin Wan did not object. As long as Jiang Muming divorced Qin Muye, then Gu Manli would do her best to help her find a rich man to marry. You've been causing trouble for me all this time. Now let's see how you escape. A ruined woman does not deserve to stay in our Qin family, Wang Guifan said fiercely. As they were listening, Jiang Muming's voice suddenly became quieter. Why is there no sound? Did something happen? For some reason, she had an ominous feeling. She should have been subdued. After that scoundrel is done, we will go in and deal with that bitch, Wang Guifan said gleefully. Qin Wan was staring at the closed door, silently clenching her fists. At that moment, inside the room, Jiang Muming's voice was almost hoarse, and she knew that asking for help was useless. Suddenly, she saw a bowl under the windowsill. A thought flashed in her mind. Jiang Muming quickly rushed over and, using the cover, extracted the spiritual spring water from her dimension. Before the man could attack her, Jiang Muming gulped it all down. The man's body was sore from the thrown objects. He walked towards her with a fierce look. You bitch, watch me deal with you. The man lunged at Jiang Muming menacingly. As the spiritual spring water entered her body, Jiang Muming felt her strength return instantly. Just as the man lunged forward, Jiang Muming clenched her fist and swung it hard at the man. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream rang out. Jiang Muming discovered that she had become much stronger. Although petite compared to the man, she felt like her body was overflowing with power. I'll kill you. Jiang Muming picked up a chair and smashed it directly against the man's body. Ah! Help! Hearing the man's voice, Wang Guifan and Qin Wan panicked instantly. What's going on? Go and check. If someone dies, we're done for, Wang Guifan said, rushing towards Jiang Muming's room. When they opened the door, they saw the man being pinned down and beaten. Help me! The man cried out for help. Seeing Wang Guifan, Jiang Muming angrily threw the chair at her. Wang Guifan was shocked and quickly dodged, but the chair still hit her head. Because of the commotion, Lu Mei, who happened to be passing by, rushed in to see what was going on. When she saw the chaotic scene inside the room, she exclaimed in shock, Muming, what's happening? Seeing her, Jiang Muming immediately acted weak, staggering towards her sister-in-law. My mother-in-law wanted to let this man defile me. Lu Mei stared in disbelief, looking at Wang Guifan in shock. How could you do such a thing? This is too much. Don't listen to her nonsense. I didn't do anything like that, Wang Guifan retorted. Sister-in-law, I'm scared, Jiang Muming said timidly, not at all like the tough woman who was beating the man moments earlier. Seeing Jiang Muming frightened, Lu Mei nodded repeatedly and immediately helped Jiang Muming out of the room. Seeing this, Qin Wan trembled and grabbed Wang Guifan's hand. Mom, what should we do? If Jiang Muming goes around telling people bad things about us? Wang Guifan was also nervous. She immediately ordered, I'll go and chase after them. You quickly take this man away. After she finished speaking, and without waiting for Qin Wan to respond, Wang Guifan immediately went after them. Qin Wan was a bit nervous. She went to the man who was lying on the ground. Big brother. As Qin Wan helped him up, the man grabbed her hand. Startled, she tried to pull her hand back, but it was too late. The man held her hand tightly, his eyes fierce. You dare play me? You said I'd get paid to sleep with a woman, but now you've beaten me up. The person who beat you was my sister-in-law, not me, Qin Wan cried out. I don't care. Your mom paid me to come here to sleep with a woman. Today, I must sleep with a woman, the man said with obscene eyes. If I can't sleep with your sister-in-law, sleeping with you is the same. Qin Wan stared in terror, instinctively trying to run to the door. Before she could, her hair was grabbed. Ah! Qin Wan cried out in pain. The man dragged Qin Wan back and kicked the door, closing it shut. No, no. Qin Wan looked on in terror as the man closed the door. The man's face was covered in blood, and he looked ferocious and terrifying. Qin Wan had just tried to get up when the man pounced on her again. Roughly tearing off Qin Wan's dress, the the man brought his filthy mouth close to hers. No. Chapter 83. Those who harm others harm themselves. Half an hour later, the man got up, content, and put on his pants. Looking at Qin Wan lying on the floor with blank eyes, the man laughed wantonly. I didn't expect her to be a virgin. I really hit the jackpot. If I wasn't worried about being arrested later, I would have liked to sleep with her a few more times. Hearing this, Qin Wan glared at the man furiously. The man put on his pants and kicked her leg. Blame your mother. She paid me to come and sleep with you. After he finished speaking, the man walked away, whistling cheerfully. Her clothes were all torn, and her underwear had been thrown aside. Qin Wan felt as if her heart had died. She had originally wanted to harm Jiang Muming, but the boomerang had fallen back on her. Wang Guifan ran into the room, and she was shocked by what she saw. Nuan you? Qin Wan slowly turned to look at her, her eyes filled with hatred. Seeing that look, Wang Guifan swallowed. Seeing the pool of blood on the floor, she immediately understood what had happened, and she smacked her thigh in anger. That damned man! How could he dare? As she spoke, Wang Guifan quickly helped Qin Wan up from the ground, and quickly grabbed a quilt to cover Qin Wan. Mom, I want to report this to the police. I want to arrest that man, Qin Wan said with bloodshot eyes. Hearing this, Wang Guifan instinctively refused. No, we can't report this to the police. Otherwise, we will both be done for. With her eyes full of anger, Qin Wan stared directly at her biological mother. At this moment, she felt only strangeness and shouted angrily, Your daughter has been bullied like this, and you still want to let the bad guy roam free? It's not that, honey. We wanted to harm Jiang Muming first. The police wouldn't let us off either, Wang Guifan said. You were the one who thought of this plan, not me. Qin Wan shouted excitedly. I thought of it, but you didn't object, did you? Wang Guifan said angrily, but seeing Qin Wan's disheveled clothes, she still apologized. I'm sorry, honey. It's Mom's fault, but we really can't call the police. We have to swallow this bitter pill. Hearing this, tears streamed down Qin Wan's cheeks incessantly. Seeing her like this, Wang Guifan held her and comforted her. It's all Jiang Muming's fault. If she hadn't run away, this wouldn't have happened. Qin Wan clenched her fists tightly. At this moment, Jiang Muming came back from outside. Seeing what was in front of her, she curled the corners of her lips and said coldly, You're really harming yourselves by harming others. You got what you deserved. Shut up, Wang Guifan roared. If it hadn't been for her, Qin Wan would not have been bullied. Wang Guifan wished that she could tear her apart. Jiang Muming said dismissively, Do you want to fight? I'll be happy to oblige. Wang Guifan clenched her fists tightly, wanting to hit her, but she didn't have the guts. After all, when she hit people, it was usually to the point of death. That night, Qin Muye returned home in a rush. As soon as he arrived, Jiang Muming told him about what had happened that day. In the main hall, Qin Muye angrily kicked away the chair by his feet. The chair flew directly at Wang Guifan. Second son, you actually wanted to ruin my wife. How could you? Qin Muye clenched his fists, his veins bulging. Wang Guifan quickly explained, It's all that man. I didn't know he had so much courage. You will return to the village tomorrow. You are not allowed here in the future, Qin Muye said with a livid face. Before he could finish his words, Wang Guifan blurted out anxiously, No, we're not going back. Qin Muye looked at her with piercing eyes. Have you not harmed Muming enough? I didn't, Wang Guifan wanted to explain, but her words sounded so pale. She suddenly said, Today was really a misunderstanding. I didn't expect that man to be so bold, to act on his lust. You saw that Jiang Muming was fine at the end. It was your younger sister who suffered. If it were really my idea, how could I let my own daughter be bullied like this? Hearing this, Qin Muye's eyes widened slightly, and he looked at Qin Wan, who had been silent. Qin Wan? Qin Wan slowly raised her head, her pale face streaked with tears. Brother, I was raped by that bastard. Qin Muye's heart tightened. He didn't expect that the person who was hurt the most was actually Qin Wan. Second son, this is really an accident. It must have been that man seeing how pretty Jiang Muming was, and became lustful. I love Wan so much. How could I bear to let her be bullied like this? How is she going to get married now? Hearing this, Qin Wan's face became even more bloodless. Turning his head, Qin Muye said in a deep voice, Go back tomorrow. You are not welcome here. After he finished speaking, Qin Muye took long strides and walked directly to the room. Seeing this, Wang Guifan stamped her foot in anger. How could I have given birth to such a heartless beast? Qin Wan didn't speak. She just hugged herself tightly. Her eyes were filled with despair. Wang Guifan was right. She had originally hoped that she could marry a wealthy man and live the life of a military wife like Jiang Muming. But now, everything was ruined. In this era, premarital chastity was very important. Thinking of this, Qin Nuan lowered her head and walked outside, feeling depressed. Nuan, where are you going? Wang Guifan quickly grabbed her hand and asked anxiously. Qin Nuan raised her head, her eyes devoid of any warmth. I want to be alone. After she finished speaking, Qin Nuan removed her hand and walked away step by step. Seeing her on the verge of collapse, Wang Guifan's heart felt strangely heavy. Although she didn't admit it, she was the main reason why Qin Nuan was ruined. No, it's not my fault. It's Jiang Muming's fault. It's all because of that bitch. Wang Guifan kept trying to convince herself. Qin Muye returned to the room and saw Jiang Muming sitting on the edge of the bed, applying medicine to her wounds. Seeing this, Qin Muye immediately stepped forward and took the ointment from her hand. Did you confirm it? Jiang Muming raised her head. Although Mom doesn't admit it, I know it was her, Qin Muye said with a heavy tone. Seeing the bruises on her hands, Qin Muye knew they were from her resistance, and he couldn't help but clench his lips, his eyes showing heartache. What do you plan to do about this matter? Jiang Muming asked calmly. Qin Muye was silent for a few seconds and said, Tomorrow, I'll propose to separate our families. Once we are separated, we will go back less often and reduce contact. We'll treat them as if they don't exist. Qin Muye's heart was truly chilled by Wang Guifan. He didn't expect her to be capable of doing such a cruel thing to Jiang Muming. Jiang Muming chuckled. She probably won't agree. She doesn't have a choice. I'll buy tickets too, and I'll send her away tomorrow. Qin Muye's expression was serious. He didn't want the same thing to happen again. Jiang Muming didn't say anything. In fact, what she wanted was to send Wang Guifan to jail. But the current evidence was only that Wang Guifan let the wolf into the house. That man had already fled. If he escaped the island, then they would have even less chance of catching him. Okay, then we'll see what she chooses, Jiang Muming said with a smile. Okay. Jiang Muming looked at the man in front of her. Thinking about the conversation with Jiang Hong that day, she suddenly asked, Mai, do you like the current me, or the me you first met many years ago? Chapter 84, Family Separation. Caught off guard by Jiang Muming's sudden question, Qin Muye asked, puzzled, why do you ask that? Jiang Muming looked at him and replied with a smile, I'm just curious. Which one do you prefer, the one from the past or the current me? Qin Muye looked at the girl in front of him and answered without hesitation, I prefer the current you. Really? Yes. When I first met you back then, I was indeed attracted. But that initial feeling came from the fact that I knew you were my fiancé. That vague affection is different from love. Qin Muye looked at her sincerely, wanting to express his true feelings. I truly fell in love with you through the everyday moments we've shared after getting married. Qin Muye held her hand, his expression full of earnestness. Upon hearing his answer, Jiang Muming smiled radiantly. She leaned forward and quickly pecked him on the cheek. That's your reward, Jiang Muming said with a light laugh. Qin Muye gazed at her and opened his arms for a hug. Wife, I've missed you. During these days on duty, he was constantly worried about Jiang Muming. He feared that she'd be bullied and that when he returned, she'd vanish. Nuzzling against his neck, Jiang Muming responded softly, I missed you too. Qin Muye didn't say anything more, just held her tightly in his arms. Meanwhile, Qin Nuan was wandering aimlessly around the family compound, finally reaching a secluded corner. Under the cover of night, Qin Nuan squatted alone on the ground, silently shedding tears. What am I going to do now? How am I supposed to get married? Qin Nuan was lost and desperate. Just then, a voice came from above. Comrade, are you all right? Qin Nuan slowly lifted her head and saw the commander she had seen a few days ago looking at her with concern. The next morning, Qin Muye brought up the issue of separating their families to Wang Guifan. As expected, she strongly opposed it. However, Qin Muye was firm. If she didn't agree to separate, he would report them to the police. If that man was found, Wang Guifan would also be arrested by the police. Faced with this situation, Wang Guifan had no choice but to compromise. To avoid giving her an opportunity to deny it, Jiang Muming prepared a pen and paper for her to sign the family separation agreement. Moreover, Qin Muye also called the village to inform the village chief about the separation. Because of the separation, starting that day, Qin Muye would no longer provide Wang Guifan with living expenses. Qin Nuan was also ruined. and Wang Guifin regretted it. As a result of the family separation, Qin Muye was sending both her and Qin Wan back to the village. Second son, you can't treat us like this. You're trying to kill your own mother. Wang Guifin wailed and cried while sitting on the ground. There were many people at the door, watching the commotion. I can't believe Commander Qin is so talented, but he has such a mother. It's truly embarrassing. Exactly, Commander Qin is really unlucky. Hearing those voices, Jiang Muming smiled lightly. Mom, did you hear that? To everyone else, you are my shame. Wang Guifin's eyes turned red with anger, and she shouted loudly, Shut up! It's all because of you, you troublemaker. You're secretly bad-mouthing me and driving a wedge between me and the second son. Before he married you, the second son was so filial. That's because he's kind, supporting your whole family by himself. As his wife, of course, I can't let him continue doing that. It's not as if he wasn't supporting you. Yet you still had to make all this trouble and even tried to find someone to defile me. Jiang Muming's voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to clearly hear the evil things Wang Guifin had done. That's too bad. You'd think Commander Qin wasn't her son the way she's been acting. Everyone was condemning her. Wang Guifin wanted to argue, but seeing Qin Muye's chilling expression, all of her words became stuck in her throat, unable to utter a single one. Let's go, Qin Muye said in a low voice. I'm not leaving. Even if we separated, I'm still your mom. You said you'd let us stay for a month, and there's still half a month left, Wang Guifin said in a tantrum. The veins on Qin Muye's forehead were throbbing. Just as he was about to speak, Lu Lianqing ran in from outside. Boss, I can't get boat tickets. They said a typhoon is coming and no boats are going out to sea. Hearing this, Wang Guifin's eyes lit up. Even the heavens were helping her. Since the boats can't sail, let mom stay for a few more days, Jiang Muming said with a smile. Seeing this, the neighbors all thought that Jiang Muming was kind-hearted. Wang Guifin quickly got up and took Qin Muye's hand. Second son, heaven is clearly telling us that our mother and son are meant to spend more time together. Qin Muye shook off her hand and said calmly, Then we'll send you back after the typhoon passes. I hope in these next 2 days, you won't cause any trouble. Otherwise, I'll disown you. Wang Guifin nodded. I understand. I won't cause trouble. Qin Muye turned to Jiang Muming and said, I'll go back to the unit first. Okay. Jiang Muming replied with a smile. Go and get busy. Don't worry about me. Qin Muye nodded, took a deep look at Wang Guifin, and then turned to leave. As Qin Muye left and closed the door behind him, the onlookers dispersed. Jiang Muming looked at Wang Guifin, who was wiping her tears, and said with a smile, Are you satisfied with this outcome? You've personally cut off your future allowance, and before you get old and bedridden, I won't give you a cent. You vixen, Wang Guifin said through gritted teeth, wanting to swallow her whole. Jiang Muming moved her wrist, her bones cracking loudly, scaring Wang Guifin into taking a step back. Say another word, and don't blame my fist for being impolite, Jiang Muming said with a threatening tone. Wang Guifin was so angry that her nostrils were flaring, but she dared not say a word. Flipping her long hair, Jiang Muming took a long stride. According to the description of Wang Guifin's character in the book, Jiang Muming felt that she wouldn't sit still. A woman who craved money so badly, how could she allow herself to be poor and destitute? Perhaps, she would be desperate enough to do something rash. Thinking of this, Jiang Muming knew she couldn't lower her guard. Seeing Wang Guifin helpless against Jiang Muming, Qin Wan's gaze turned cold. Now that her body was ruined, in a rural place that valued chastity so much, she would not be able to find a good match. Therefore, staying here was her only option. Thinking of this, Qin Wan's eyes had a determined look as if she were ready to risk it all. Close to midnight, Qin Wan quietly left home. Wang Guifin came back from the toilet and noticed that there was no one in bed. Wan. Wang Guifin called out a few times in the room, but she didn't hear a response. Thinking of her silent demeanor during the day, Wang Guifin's heart was filled with worry. Could she have done something rash? Wang Guifin's heart tightened, and she quickly ran to the door and knocked forcefully. Second son, wake up. Your sister is gone. Hearing this, Qin Muye quickly opened his door. What happened? I just went to the toilet, and when I came back, I didn't see Wan. Do you think she did something rash? Wang Guifin asked anxiously. Qin Muye frowned, his expression serious. Hurry up and go to the guards at the entrance to the compound and ask if Qin Wan left. I'll search around the compound. Okay, Wang Guifin said with a trembling voice, and quickly ran out. After Wang Guifin left, Qin Muye quickly put on his clothes, Wife, you go back to sleep. I'll go look for her. Jiang Muming also got up. I'll go and look for her too. Wang Guifin went to the guards and learned that Qin Wan had not left the compound. Therefore, the three of them began to search for her around the family compound. Wang Guifin held a flashlight and scanned around. When she was sweeping through the area, she suddenly saw someone behind a tree. Who's there? Hearing the voice, the two people behind the tree immediately separated. Wang Guifin shone her flashlight, revealing a man and a woman, hurriedly putting on their clothes. One of them was none other than Qin Wan. Wan, what are you doing with this man? Wang Guifin yelled angrily. Chapter 85. It was their own choice, their own desires. Before she could finish her sentence, Wang Guifin angrily charged forward, hitting the man with her flashlight directly. Damn it! What are you doing to my daughter? Wang Guifin's voice was already loud, and with her yelling, the nearby residents came running out. Qin Wan was also startled and hurriedly protected the man. Mom, don't hit him. When Jiang Muming and Qin Muye arrived, a crowd had already surrounded them. Isn't that Commander Jiang? What is he doing here in the middle of the night, with his clothes all messed up? Jiang Muming looked at the man, who didn't even have time to fix his pants, with surprise. Her eyes were filled with shock. Wasn't everyone who lived in the family compound married? Zhang Ping, how do you explain this? Qin Muye said in a deep voice. The man in front of him happened to be Zhang Ping, the commander of his own regiment. Seeing their appearance, anyone would know what they had been doing. Zhang Ping was a bit flustered. He didn't expect that he would be caught cheating so soon. Commander Qin, Zhang Ping couldn't say a word. You dog, you dared to sleep with my daughter. You must give her an explanation. Wang Guifin shouted loudly, hoping that everyone could hear it. This man was a commander. It would be good for Qin Wan to marry him. Seeing so many people watching, Zhang Ping quickly pointed at Qin Wan. Commander, she seduced me. Hearing this, Qin Wan's eyes widened in disbelief. What are you saying? You were the one who made the first move on me. It turned out that the night before, when Qin Wan was sad at the family compound, Zhang Ping appeared and comforted her. They had talked for a long time, and Qin Wan felt that Zhang Ping was interested in her, which was what made her act on those thoughts. Qin Muye's fists clenched tightly, his veins bulging. Just then, Zhang Ping's wife arrived. Seeing her husband with another woman, her anger boiled over, and she charged forward. You bastard! You dared to look for women outside. How can you do this to me? Zhang Ping's wife hit Zhang Ping's head and body. Wife, I was wrong. She seduced me. I was just talking to her, but then she put my hand on her chest and I couldn't help myself. Qin Wan's face was as pale as paper. Although she knew that men couldn't be trusted, she never expected him to be so ruthless. Seeing the judging stares, Qin Wan shouted, You were the one who said your wife was a tigress, an ugly hag, and that you were already tired of her. I thought you really liked me. Hearing this, Zhang Ping's wife got even angrier and grabbed Qin Wan's hair. You're a slut too. You're touching a man who has a wife. Seeing Qin Wan crying out in pain, Wang Guifin also joined the fight. You dare hit my daughter? I'll fight you. In no time, the four of them were wrestling with each other, with screams resounding. Seeing this situation, Qin Muye yelled sternly, Enough! Hearing him, the people who were fighting finally separated. Qin Wan's clothes had been torn by Zhang Ping's wife. Second son, you must stand up for Wan. You can't let her be taken advantage of. Wang Guifin yelled loudly. You intentionally came on to a married man. Being taken advantage of is letting you off easy. If I report you, you'll get arrested, Zhang Ping's wife retorted. That's right. You deliberately went after a married man. Do you have any shame? Someone in the crowd said loudly. Was your man without fault? If he didn't have that intention, would he have rolled around with me? You call me a marriage wrecker. I'm going to report him for being a pervert, Qin Wan said with bloodshot eyes. Jiang Muming, who had been watching, agreed. That's true. You can't just blame the woman for cheating. It's men who can't control their lower bodies that give others an opportunity. That's right. Men aren't any good either. A military wife chimed in. Qin Muye stepped forward and bowed to Zhang Ping's wife. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I didn't discipline my sister well. Seeing this, Zhang Ping's wife said, It's not your fault. It's your mother's fault for not teaching her daughter properly. A crooked beam casts a crooked shadow. Wang Guifin got angry when she heard this, and said with a ferocious face, What do you mean? You dare to scold me? So what if I scold you? You had the nerve to do it, but not to admit it. It's Commander Qin's misfortune to have a mother like you." Before Zhang Ping's wife could finish her words, Wang Guifin directly grabbed her face. "You little wench, I'll rip your face to shreds." Ah! Seeing his wife being beaten, Zhang Ping hurried to help. The commotion had gotten too big, and the lights in the compound were lit up. Deng Suiping and his wife also rushed over and gathered the two families in one place. The final result was that both sides would resolve the matter privately without involving the police. Otherwise, Qin Wan would need to be arrested for breaking up a marriage, and Zhang Ping would need to be punished. However, Qin Wan's reputation in the family compound was ruined, and she had become a laughingstock. Back home in the main hall, Qin Wan, who had been taken advantage of, angrily lashed out at Wang Guifin. "What are you making a fuss about? Why did you come find me? If you had just given me a few more days, I could have succeeded for sure." Originally, she thought that she would use her time in the compound to develop a relationship with Zhang Ping. This way, she could find a way to get Zhang Ping to support her. If she managed to get pregnant with Zhang Ping's child in the future, then she could force him to take her as a mistress. She had such great plans, but Wang Guifin's shout ruined everything. "Your mom was worried about you, and now you are blaming her?" Qin Muye said with a stern face. Hearing this, Qin Wan looked at him blankly. "Second brother?" Before she could finish her sentence, Qin Muye slapped her directly on the face, leaving a bright red handprint. "Qin Wan, I'm so disappointed in you. How could you have become like this today?" Qin Muye looked at her with anguish. Her cheek stung with pain. Qin Wan choked back her sobs. "Was it wrong for me to just want to marry someone well off? That doesn't mean you should ruin other people's families. Now that I'm like this, if I don't ruin another's family, how am I ever going to marry someone well off?" Qin Wan cried and asked. Qin Muye clenched his fists, not saying a word. "Wan Wan." Wang Guifin grabbed her hand, but she was forcefully shaken off. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't gone to get a hoodlum, would I have been taken advantage of?" Qin Wan cried desperately. "You're also the one who told me to go find a married man. It's your fault that I've become like this." Seeing the despair on her face, Wang Guifin's heart skipped a beat. Wan, my whole life has been ruined by you. I hate you all." Qin Wan cried as she ran out. Wan. Wang Guifin hurriedly chased after her. Jiang Muming watched all of this calmly, with little emotion in her eyes. She wouldn't feel sympathy. Qin Wan's current situation was her own fault. Moreover, she couldn't sympathize with the harm that she did to the original owner of this body. Seeing Qin Muye's tightly pursed lips, Jiang Muming turned around and hugged him. "This is not your fault. I shouldn't have agreed to let them stay," Qin Muye said in a hoarse voice. "This was their own choice. Their own desires were the ones to blame." Chapter 86. Miss Zhang's words carry more weight with Commander Qin. After causing such a scandal today, Qin Wan had become a laughingstock to everyone. After running out of the family compound, Wang Guifin followed after her. No matter what she said, Qin Wan refused to return to the compound. Helpless, Wang Guifin could only tearfully book a room for Qin Wan in the guest house. By the time she returned to the family compound, it was already noon the next day. As she made her way home, the people she passed all pointed at her and whispered to each other, their faces filled with clear ridicule. Seeing this, Wang Guifin felt as though she had been slapped in the face. She couldn't help but cover her face as she continued to walk. When she arrived home, Wang Guifin went straight to her room and slammed the door shut. "I came here to get money from the second son, but I didn't expect so much to happen," Wang Guifin said angrily. Thinking about how she had separated from Qin Muye and that he would never give her money again, Wang Guifin's eyes were filled with resentment. Not only that, but Qin Wan's innocence had also been ruined, making it even more difficult for her to marry in the future. The way things had unfolded was completely out of her control, and Wang Guifin became increasingly angry the more she thought about it. It's all because of Jiang Muming. If it weren't for her, none of this would have happened. Wang Guifin's eyes were filled with hatred. She didn't think that any of this was her fault, blaming all the tragedies she had suffered on Jiang Muming. Just as she was filled with hatred, Gu Manli's voice came from outside the door. "Is Qin Wan here?" Hearing that, Wang Guifin opened the door, revealing Gu Manli standing outside. Seeing her, Wang Guifin's eyes lit up with delight. "Miss Gu, why are you here?" Gu Manli walked forward and asked with a friendly smile. "Auntie, is your daughter Qin Wan here?" "Wan is not here. She didn't want to stay in the compound, so she's staying outside," Wang Guifin said with a sigh. Hearing this, Gu Manli exclaimed in shock. Could what everyone is saying be true? Did Qin Wan really? Wang Guifin said reluctantly, yes, it's true. Hearing this, Gu Manli showed a troubled expression. Oh dear. I originally found a good match for Qin Wan, but I guess that's off. Wang Guifin was surprised. What kind of match? Gu Manli didn't answer, only sighing, there's no point in saying it now. If Qin Wan had relations with another man, then it'll be difficult for her to marry into a good family. Hearing this, Wang Guifin slapped her leg in frustration. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let Wan stay that day. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been defiled and she wouldn't have gone down that path. Gu Manli covered her mouth. What happened? Seeing Gu Manli's kind face, Wang Guifin told her everything that happened. There's such a thing? Qin Wan is too pitiful, Gu Manli said sympathetically. You can say that again. Miss Gu, do you know any good divorcees who are willing to marry? Wang Guifin asked eagerly. Gu Manli shook her head and apologized. I'm sorry, Auntie. I can't think of anyone suitable. Qin Wan's life is ruined. You said it. It's all that vixen Jiang Muming's fault. If it weren't for chasing after her, I wouldn't have left, Wang Guifin said resentfully. Seeing her like this, a cold and disdainful look flashed in Gu Manli's eyes, but her expression remained gentle. Auntie, please don't be too sad. Qin Wan had no choice. In the future, I will find a way to mend your relationship with Commander Qin. Wang Guifin looked at her in surprise. You? Commander Qin and I are friends. I will try my best to persuade him. After all, you are his mother, and it's right for him to be filial, Gu Manli said with a warm gaze. Wang Guifin was delighted and held her hand. Really? Thank you so much, Miss Gu. You're welcome. It's what I should do. After all, filial piety is a tradition of our people. But I can only do my best. After all, Commander Qin has a wife. Miss Zhang's words have more weight in Commander Qin's heart. Hearing this, Wang Guifin became annoyed. That Jiang Muming must be constantly sowing discord. Gu Manli said disapprovingly, that Miss Jiang is really thoughtless. You are Commander Qin's mother and also her mother. How can she treat you like this? But it's no use dwelling on this. Let's just hope that Miss Jiang won't cause too much trouble. Hearing that, Wang Guifin looked worried. After these few days of interacting, Wang Guifin was even more clear about how much weight Jiang Muming carried in Qin Mai's heart. If she continued to sow discord, then her relationship with Qin Mai would never be mended. Unless she left Qin Mai. Seeing her pensive, Gu Manli smiled and stood up. Auntie, I'll be off now. In the future, I'll try to persuade Commander Qin. You don't have to worry too much. Thank you, Miss Gu, you're so kind, Wang Guifin said with a smile. It's what I should do. It's just a pity about Qin Wan. That marriage was supposed to be so good. Gu Manli sighed and turned to leave. After sending her to the door, Wang Guifin grew even more displeased with Jiang Muming when she thought about Gu Manli's words. If the second son married a girl like Miss Gu, she would definitely be filial to me. Jiang Muming is nothing but a jinx, Wang Guifin said indignantly. Thinking about how if Jiang Muming continued to badmouth her to Qin Mai, then she would never have a chance to mend her relationship with Qin Mai. No, if the second son doesn't have me in his eyes, how am I going to get money? How am I going to help the eldest son's family? A sinister look appeared in Wang Guifin's eyes. I need to think of a way to make Jiang Muming unable to influence the second son anymore. As she was thinking, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in Wang Guifin's eyes. She didn't have much time left, and she needed to get rid of Jiang Muming as soon as possible, making sure that she would never get a chance to be a troublemaker again. Moreover, only if Jiang Muming was gone would Qin Mai have a chance to marry Gu Manli. Judging from Gu Manli's filial nature, she believed that she would get a chance to receive money from Qin Mai again in the future. Thinking of this, Wang Guifin had an idea. At 4 p.m., Wang Guifin was cooking in the kitchen. Jiang Muming walked in from outside. Because the typhoon was causing high winds and the seaside was dangerous, she and Jiang Hong could only go home early. Smelling the aroma of cooking coming from the kitchen, Jiang Muming's eyes were filled with surprise. Why are you so diligent today? Is it because you're leaving and want to leave a good impression? However, she didn't think that Wang Guifin was that kind of person. Filled with curiosity, Jiang Muming went over to the kitchen. She stopped outside the door and saw Wang Guifin cooking. There were already 4 dishes on the table, and they looked very lavish. Jiang Muming frowned, with a confused look in her eyes. This fish soup should be ready soon, right? Wang Guifin murmured to herself. Opening the lid of the pot to taste the soup and seeing that it was almost done, Wang Guifin took a small bottle out of her pocket. Seeing this, Jiang Muming narrowed her eyes. She saw Wang Guifin put the pills from the bottle into the soup and then stir it gently. Chapter 87. fish soup with extras. Seeing this, Jiang Muming quietly returned to her room. It seems she's truly desperate, wanting to kill me, Jiang Muming thought. She didn't believe that it was just seasoning. Wang Guifan's hatred for her was practically overflowing. Looking ahead thoughtfully, Jiang Muming didn't want to expose her directly. At most, it would just lead to Wang Guifan being scolded by Qin Muye. Not a real lesson for her. And even if they saw each other less often, there was still the possibility that they would meet. She didn't want to expend energy watching out for something. That was too exhausting. It would be better to let her know the consequences thoroughly. Thinking this, Jiang Muming decided to play along and see how Wang Guifan would handle things. In the evening, Qin Muye returned home. Seeing the lavish meal, he looked at Jiang Muming curiously. "Did you make this?" "No, Mom did," Jiang Muming said, standing next to Qin Muye and linking arms with him. "I was even wondering if the sun rose from the west today. It's a miracle that Mom would make so many dishes for us two to eat." Hearing this, Wang Guifan walked out smiling. "I was thinking that we wouldn't see each other for a long time after this separation, so I wanted to say goodbye to you properly." "Mom is so kind," Jiang Muming said truthfully. A look of displeasure flashed in Wang Guifan's eyes, but she forced a smile. "No matter what, the second son is my son, and you're my daughter-in-law." Jiang Muming raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on her lips. Soon, the three sat down at the table. Wang Guifan looked at the two of them and sighed. "Originally, I thought about coming here to develop a relationship with the second son. I didn't expect so many things would happen." Seeing her acting like this, Jiang Muming said coolly, "So, developing a relationship with one's son means doing everything possible to bully one's daughter-in-law. Your way of developing relationships is certainly unique, Mom." Hearing this, Wang Guifan said with displeasure, "Jiang Muming, I want to say a proper goodbye with you and the second son. Can't you speak properly?" "I think I'm already showing my best attitude to the person who tried to have me raped," Jiang Muming responded calmly. Wang Guifan felt angry inside. Suppressing her rage, she took a deep breath. "After all, we're family. All of this is in the past. After I go back, I won't have any chance to bother you two anymore. Jiang Muming, you have to take care of the second son for me." Jiang Muming responded with a smile. "Muye is my husband. He will take care of himself." Wang Guifan gritted her teeth. Talking with Jiang Muming would shorten anyone's life. "Jiang Muming, I'm the second son's birth mother. Can't you put aside your prejudices?" Seeing her nostrils flare, Jiang Muming didn't speak, focusing on eating her meal. "Let's eat," Qin Muye said in a low voice, and lowered his head to eat. Wang Guifan looked at the two of them, silent for a long time, before saying, "Jiang Muming, I've been thinking and I think I should apologize to you. No matter what, you're the second son's wife. I shouldn't have treated you that way." Jiang Muming did not continue to argue, lest the soup become impossible for her to get rid of. "For my sake, I accept your apology," Jiang Muming said calmly. Hearing this, a clear smile appeared in Wang Guifan's eyes. "Good. Don't worry, we will definitely get along in the future. Peace makes a home prosperous. Our family only has too much conflict. I am also waiting to hold my grandson soon." As she spoke, Wang Guifan quickly picked up the enamel bowl and a spoon, and began to serve her soup. "This is carp soup. It's been cooking for hours. It smells delicious. You should try it. It's very nutritious for when you have kids." Looking at the whitish carp soup, Jiang Muming moved closer. "It does look delicious." "Of course it does. You should try it, and if you like it, drink more," Wang Guifan said, placing the soup in front of her. Jiang Muming shook her head and refused. "But I don't want to drink fish soup today. I had fish soup with Jiang Hung this afternoon." Hearing this, Wang Guifan's expression stiffened, and she said with a frown, "Jiang Muming, you're not going to drink this just because I made it. And that's why you're making up excuses, right? I put a lot of effort into making this." "That's true. You went through all the trouble to make this soup, Mom. It would be a waste not to drink it." "Exactly. These soups are very nutritious. I can't bear to buy them for myself usually," Wang Guifan echoed. "Why don't you try some? And if it's really not good, then you don't have to drink. I've heard that drinking fish soup makes it easier to get pregnant." After saying that, Jiang Muming pushed the bowl of soup towards Qin Muye. "Husband, this is from Mom's heart. We can't let it go to waste. You should drink it." Before she could finish speaking, Wang Guifan quickly said, "The second son doesn't drink it. He doesn't like these kinds of things. He hasn't liked fish soup since he was a child." Hearing this, Jiang Muming looked at him. "You don't like it?" "It's all right. Before I joined the military I ate it rarely," Qin Muye said concisely. "That's eating it rarely. Not that you don't want to eat it," Jiang Muming said, placing a spoon in the bowl. It's from Mom's heart? Qin Muye nodded and picked up the soup. Wait. Before Wang Guifin could stop him, Qin Muye had already drank the entire bowl of carp soup. Wang Guifin watched him drink all the soup with wide eyes and a flash of worry. Thinking about what she had put in the soup, Wang Guifin was somewhat nervous, and she could only pray that the effect of the medicine wouldn't take effect too quickly. Not long after, Qin Muye put down his chopsticks and began to double over. What's wrong? Jiang Muming asked with concern. Are you not feeling well? It's nothing, just a bit of a stomach ache, Qin Muye explained with a frown. Did you eat something that wasn't clean? Jiang Muming asked curiously. Seeing that he was already feeling uncomfortable, Wang Guifin quickly said, Then you should go to the hospital and get checked out. No need. It's probably that you didn't wash it properly. It will be fine if I go to the toilet, Jiang Muming said matter-of-factly. Hearing this, Wang Guifin anxiously said, That can't be right. You should quickly go to the hospital. Jiang Muming still insisted, It should be nothing big. Maybe it will be okay if he lies down for a while. Before she could finish, Wang Guifin angrily scolded, Jiang Muming, are you trying to kill the second son? Send him to the hospital now. Qin Muye's face was pale, and the pain in his abdomen was gradually becoming clearer. Jiang Muming said innocently, Don't talk nonsense. Muye is fine. How am I trying to hurt him? Seeing Qin Muye getting increasingly worse, Wang Guifin finally panicked and shouted loudly, Send him to the hospital now. The second son is poisoned with rat poison. Jiang Muming's pupils widened. Goodness me, it's actually rat poison. She really is ruthless. Rat poison? Qin Muye's eyebrows twitched as he looked at Wang Guifin suspiciously. Wang Guifin swallowed nervously, before confessing the truth. I put rat poison in the fish soup, a whole bottle. Jiang Muming slammed on the table in anger, and shouted, A whole bottle of rat poison? You wanted to kill Muye? No. You wanted to kill me? Quickly, to the hospital. Rat poison can kill people, Jiang Muming said hurriedly. Wang Guifin had no time to think more about it, and immediately helped Qin Muye to stand up. With lightning speed, Jiang Muming poured a bowl of spiritual spring water from her dimension and gave it to him to drink. Drink some water. See if it will help to flush it out. Qin Muye drank the water, and with the support of Wang Guifin and Jiang Muming, he walked outside. Jiang Muming requested the help of a guard, and had Qin Muye carried to the hospital. As soon as they arrived at the entrance of the military hospital, Jiang Muming pointed at Wang Guifin and yelled, Wang Guifin, you dared to poison a military officer with rat poison. You're truly evil. A person like you deserves to be locked away in prison. There were soldiers guarding the military hospital, and they rushed over immediately after hearing this. What happened? Jiang Muming pointed at Wang Guifin and said indignantly, Soldier, this woman poisoned her own son, who is a military officer, with a whole bottle of rat poison. I wasn't trying to hurt the second son. After hearing this, the soldiers immediately gestured, and two of them came forward and grabbed Wang Guifin. Take her away. No, I didn't mean to do it. That's my son. How could I hurt him? Wang Guifin cried anxiously, but the soldiers took her away without a word. An hour later, at the military hospital, Qin Muye slowly opened his eyes. Jiang Muming asked with concern, How are you feeling? The doctor said that you were okay since you didn't drink too much, and that the poisoning wasn't too serious, and you got to the hospital in time. I'm feeling better, Qin Muye replied hoarsely. Your mom is so awful. She even put rat poison in the fish soup. She wanted me dead, Jiang Muming said angrily. Qin Muye looked at her and said weakly, Ning Ning, did you know that there was something wrong with the fish soup? Chapter 88. After all, I'm a devil from hell. Seeing Qin Muye's deep eyes that seemed to see through everything, Jiang Muming didn't hide anything, yes. Getting a confirmation, Qin Muye wasn't surprised. Because Jiang Muming liked drinking fish soup a lot, but he could feel her rejection. I came back a little earlier today. As a result, I saw her adding something into the fish soup. Although I didn't know what she was adding, I didn't think it was anything good, probably trying to mess with me, Jiang Muming explained. Do you think I'm bad? Knowing that the soup was bad, yet still letting him drink it. From his perspective, it would seem like Jiang Muming was evil. Qin Muye took her hand and responded hoarsely, No, I believe you would never stand by and watch something happen to me. I even objected when Wang Guifin said she would take you to the hospital. I think you wanted to force her to admit what she put in the fish soup, Qin Muye said, analyzing. Jiang Muming nodded, yes. Although I didn't know what she put in it, I knew that she wanted to hurt me. So, I wanted you to realize what kind of person she is. But I really didn't expect she would want to poison me so soon. She liked fish soup a lot. If Wang Guifin had made a delicious soup, she might have drunk all of it. If that happened, even a god would have trouble saving her. Disappointment was written all over Qin Muye's face. I also didn't expect that she would become like this today. Even if she didn't like you, you are my wife. Jiang Muming smiled. If people have past lives and present lives, then the way I was murdered in the dream was perhaps my past life. In my previous life, I didn't escape her clutches and died in her hands. Looking at the woman in front of him, Qin Muye's heart sank, and he couldn't help but hold her hand tighter. The poisoning wasn't severe for me. It must be related to that water you gave me, right? Qin Muye said suddenly. How did you know? Originally, my stomach was hurting badly and the feeling of nausea was really strong. But after drinking that water, I felt like those symptoms were alleviated. Qin Muye stated his judgment truthfully. Jiang Muming smiled and made up a reasonable excuse. I added some medicine to the water, which I said could detoxify, and I didn't expect that it would really work. Thank you, Ning Ning, Qin Muye said sincerely. Even though you knew that my mom wanted to hurt you, you were still willing to save me. You are you, and she is her. They can't be mixed up, Jiang Muming said with a calm gaze. Now that your mom has been arrested for attempting to murder a soldier, she'll be imprisoned even if you stand up for her. Jiang Muming created a commotion at the hospital to make the situation bigger. Wang Guifin harmed the original owner of this body and hurt her multiple times. She had to make her pay the price. Looking at her clear eyes, Qin Muye seemed to be able to read her mind. After being silent for a long time, Qin Muye closed his eyes and said in a low voice, I won't interfere with this matter. Deal with it as it needs to be dealt with. Seeing that he had made a choice, Jiang Muming smiled. Okay. At the detention center, Wang Guifin was locked in a small room, constantly shouting, I want to see my son. I want to see him. She kept banging on the door, her voice hoarse. Originally, she just wanted to poison Jiang Muming to make room for Gu Manli. That way, she would have a chance to mend her relationship with Qin Muye in the future. But a mistake caused Qin Muye to be harmed, and she had been caught. The police said she would have to spend several years in prison. Please, I want to see my son. He won't stand by and watch me get arrested, Wang Guifin said in a raspy voice. Just then, the door opened, and 2 police officers came in. Without saying a word, they took Wang Guifin out. Did my son release me? I knew my son wouldn't abandon me, Wang Guifin said joyfully. When she was brought into the interrogation room, she saw Jiang Muming sitting there. Seeing her, Wang Guifin was stunned for a few seconds, then shouted shrilly, Where's the second son? Where is he? Muye is still in the hospital. He won't come to see you, Jiang Muming said coldly. Hearing this, Wang Guifin's eyes widened, and she was filled with anxiety. She wanted to rush forward, but the police held her tightly. Jiang Muming, please let me go. I know I was wrong. Please don't arrest me. No matter what, I'm your mother-in-law, Wang Guifin said crying. Seeing her tearful appearance, Jiang Muming remained expressionless. When you were hurting me time and time again, you never thought that I was your son's wife. You'll probably be in jail for a few years. Hearing that she would have to go to prison, Wang Guifin dropped to her knees, continuously kowtowing to Jiang Muming and begging. For mercy, I'm sorry, Muming, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me this once. I don't want to go to jail. Seeing this, Jiang Muming smiled at the police. Officer, I would like to talk to her alone. Is that okay? The police thought for a moment and responded, Okay. Be careful. We'll be watching at the door. Thank you. After the police left, Wang Guifin crawled to Jiang Muming's feet and grabbed her leg. Daughter-in-law, I know I was wrong. I won't ever dare to bully you again. Can you let me go? I don't want to go to jail. I can't go to jail. You don't want the second son to have a mother in jail, right? At that moment, Wang Guifin no longer had her arrogant attitude from before and kept begging her. Jiang Muming crouched down and lifted her chin. You want me to let you go? Heh, how is that possible? After all, I'm a devil from hell. Wang Guifin's eyes widened in terror. What do you mean? Seeing the fear in her eyes, Jiang Muming said calmly, Because in another world, Jiang Muming was already tormented to death by you. So my arrival is to help her seek revenge on you. Hearing this, Wang Guifin backed away in fear. Looking at her in terror, Are you a ghost? Jiang Muming smiled harmlessly, but didn't answer her question. Wang Guifin, this is your retribution. You're a ghost. You're a ghost. Wang Guifin was scared and stood up, running towards the door in a panic. Officer, she's a ghost. Hurry up and arrest her. Officer. Seeing her acting hysterical, the police didn't say anything. Grabbing her, and taking her back to the detention room. 2 days later, Wang Guifan's sentence came down. Because she had poisoned a military officer, Wang Guifan was sentenced to 10 years in prison. After the typhoon ended, Wang Guifan was going to be transferred to a higher-level prison. On the day she was transferred to the pier, Qin Muye and Jiang Muming both came. Even Qin Wan, who was also preparing to leave the island, met Wang Guifan here. Nuan, second son. Wang Guifan was in handcuffs, tears in her eyes, as she struggled and shouted toward them. Qin Wan looked at her coldly, her eyes even carrying hatred. Seeing her look, Wang Guifan burst into tears. She knew that Qin Wan hated her. Second son, I didn't mean to harm you, Wang Guifan said, choking with sobs. I know. Qin Muye looked at her indifferently, but you hurt my wife, and isn't that the same as hurting me? Wang Guifan covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I just wanted to live a good life. Listening to her words of remorse, Qin Muye remained unmoved. I hope you will reform yourself in prison. After leaving those words behind, Qin Muye turned around. Qin Wan also looked at Wang Guifan and left without looking back, leaving with Qin Muye. Watching her children leave, Wang Guifan was filled with regret, but it was already too late. She had to pay the price for her actions. Jiang Muming took his hand. Are you all right? Qin Muye nodded. I'm fine. After all, I was always the one she abandoned since I was little. Jiang Muming was puzzled. Chapter 89. I swear, in the name of a soldier. My dad had a younger brother. I called him my second uncle. Since my second uncle didn't marry, he asked my parents to give him one of us, either my brother or me, to adopt as his son. My dad didn't want to, but for the house that my second uncle had built, she chose me, Qin Muye stated calmly. Jiang Muming looked at him in surprise. She had heard about such things, but she never thought it would actually happen to someone she knew. So when I was 5 or 6, I lived with my second uncle, but he and my dad were often away working, so I mostly grew up on my own. Even when my birth mother was around, she never took care of me. Later, when I was 10, my second uncle died in a mining accident. They were compensated some money. That money was supposed to be mine, but she took me back home, and she took all of that money as well. Jiang Muming said worriedly, and took his hand. Qin Muye's eyes held a very shallow smile. I'm all right. Maybe because I was given to my second uncle, she was a bit biased against me from a young age. Later, when I started to earn money, she became a little nicer to me. Listening to his words, Jiang Muming opened her arms and gave him a hug. Those are all things of the past. The future will be better. Because you have me now, we have our own family. The small person hugged him, and Qin Muye felt her warmth, his eyes showing a smile, as he returned the embrace. Yes, I have you. Jiang Muming finally understood why Qin Muye never went back to the village after the original owner died in the story. For him, that place had little to offer in the way of warmth. Second brother. Qin Wan's voice sounded, and Jiang Muming left Qin Muye's embrace and looked at her calmly. Qin Muye looked at his younger sister and said in a low voice, Are you going back to the village? Qin Wan forced a bitter smile. If I don't go back to the village, where else can I go? Seeing her like that, Qin Muye was silent for a long time, and finally lifted his hand and placed it on her shoulder. Don't make mistakes again in the future. Okay, second brother. I'm sorry. Because of me and Mom, our family has been in chaos during this time, Qin Wan said sincerely, apologizing. Qin Muye didn't say he forgave her because Qin Wan had also been an accomplice in hurting Jiang Muming. Just because she was his younger sister didn't mean that he could forgive her. That wouldn't be fair to Jiang Muming. Qin Muye looked at Jiang Muming. Ning, can I get some money in advance? I want to give Qin Wan some money for her travel expenses. Seeing his look, Jiang Muming took out 20 yuan without hesitation. Here, take it. Thank you, Ning, Qin Muye said gratefully, then gave 15 yuan to Qin Wan. I'll go buy you some food for the road. After putting the money into her hand, Qin Muye went to buy some food. Qin Wan looked at the money in her hand, and then at the beautiful and collected girl in front of her. She couldn't describe the feeling in her heart. Thank you. I didn't expect that even after we treated you like that, you would still be willing to give me money, Qin Wan said with a forced smile. I didn't give it to you. I gave it to my man, Jiang Muming said calmly. His money is under my control. If you want to leech off of him like a parasite, you won't have a chance. Qin Wan nodded. I know. Before, I was always thinking, if my brother had married Gu Manli, our lives would have been so much happier. But there are no ifs in this world. The mistake that my mom and I made was that we shouldn't have assumed things and tried to change the facts. Hearing this, Jiang Muming narrowed her eyes slightly. Gu Manli? Yes. Originally, my mom wanted you and my brother to divorce, and then have him marry Gu Manli instead. If we didn't have those thoughts, none of this would have happened. It was too late to regret it now. Hearing her words, Jiang Muming looked thoughtful. Considering what Wang Guifin had done, she had a vague feeling that Gu Manli might have been instigating or adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. Qin Muye came back after buying food and gave it to her. After Qin said thank you, she headed towards the ship. Jiang Muming watched her back as she left. This meant that the bad people who had wronged the original owner of this body had all received their punishments. Qin life was destined to be unhappy. Ning Ning, a low voice sounded. Jiang Muming turned her head to look at him. In the future, I only have you. Don't leave me, Qin Muye said, taking her hand, his voice hoarse and earnest. Hearing this, Jiang Muming turned to face him. Meeting his gaze, Jiang Muming smiled radiantly. Of course, we are husband and wife. As long as you don't betray me, or do anything to hurt me, our marriage will last a long time. Qin Muye nodded resolutely, releasing her. He saluted her seriously. I swear in the name of a soldier, that in this lifetime I will not betray the country, and I will not betray Jiang Muming. If I violate this oath, may my bones never be found. Getting his promise, Jiang Muming smiled and replied, remember your promise. Otherwise, I won't show mercy. Definitely. After leaving the pier, Qin Muye sent Jiang Muming to the entrance of the family compound, and then headed to the military base. Finally getting rid of those two, Jiang Muming hummed happily, thinking that her life was finally about to return to normal. As she walked, she met someone head-on. Seeing her, Jiang Muming stopped in her tracks. She then curled her lips into a smile, her face radiant. Dr. Gu. Gu Manli approached her and said with a smile, Miss Jiang. Jiang Muming raised an eyebrow slightly. Dr. Gu, that's not quite the right way to address me. Mai and I are already married. It's not suitable to call me Miss Jiang. In your military unit, you like to call each other sister-in-law. You can call me that too. Or, you can call me Mai's wife. Jiang Muming deliberately emphasized her relationship with Qin Muye, and as expected she saw that Gu Manli's face didn't look too good. As expected, Gu Manli's feelings for Qin Muye were much stronger than she had imagined. Thinking about the intercepted phone call, that Shout Ao had also done that for Gu Manli. The female lead's halo was indeed very strong. I'm not too familiar with Commander Qin, so calling you sister-in-law isn't appropriate. Then I'll call you Mrs. Shun, Gu Manli said with a smile. Miss Jiang might not know, but the term Mrs. is used to address married women. Wanting to show off her learning, Jiang Muming replied calmly, of course I know. I also know that Mrs. in English is lady or woman. Those are also words that were brought in from foreign countries. Do you want me to explain the difference between the two words to you? Surprise flashed in Gu Manli's eyes. She didn't expect that she would actually know this. No need. Dr. Gu likes my husband, right? Jiang Muming said directly. However, coveting another woman's husband isn't something that a military doctor should be doing. A flash of panic crossed Gu Manli's eyes. Mrs. Jiang? Dr. Gu doesn't need to rush to deny it. You and I both know whether you do or not. Dr. Gu, you're really well-liked. My mother-in-law caused so much trouble just to get rid of me and make room for you, Jiang Muming said calmly. Gu Manli's face turned pale. How did she know about all of this? But so what? Qin Muye loves me. That's my biggest trump card, Jiang Muming said calmly. Gu Manli swallowed and said with a smile, I'm afraid that Commander Qin doesn't love you. He has a girl that he likes in his heart. Jiang Muming feigned surprise, her big eyes blinking in surprise. Did I not tell you that the girl he has always held so dearly in his heart was me? Her eyes opened widely. Gu Manli said in shock. What? It's me. I'm the one that he's been in love with for many years, Jiang Muming said. Chapter 90. I'm not scolding you. I'm just worried about you. Gu Manli's eyes widened as she looked at her in disbelief. What? You? Jiang Muming seemed to recall something and placed her palm in front of her mouth. I almost forgot. You're not that familiar with Mai. So of course he wouldn't tell you about that. My husband. He loves me so deeply. Looking at Jiang Muming's delicate face and triumphant expression, Gu Manli's ears were ringing. She had heard that Qin Muye had a girl he liked, but she never thought that the girl was actually Jiang Muming. Jiang Muming who, in her eyes, was just a simple country girl. It was actually you? Gu Manli stared blankly at her. Many things were starting to make sense. She finally understood why Qin Muye's gaze towards Jiang Muming was so gentle, why Qin Muye cared about her so much, and why when she appeared, he couldn't see anyone else. It turned out that Jiang Muming was the girl that he loved so deeply. The enormous shock caused Gu Manli to stand still, dazed. Jiang Muming tidied her long hair and said casually, "If Mai knew that you had been secretly doing all this, what would he think of you? What would those who thought that you were so pure and kind-hearted think of you if they knew what you have done?" A flash of nervousness crossed Gu Manli's eyes, and she said with feigned composure, "Mrs. Jiang, you don't have any evidence. Don't make slanderous accusations. Although I've been in contact with Annie and Qin Wan, I was just helping Qin Wan find a match, nothing else." Jiang Muming narrowed her eyes slightly, looking at her expression. She could stay calm, which meant that she was very careful in her actions. Whether you have done it or not, you know it in your heart. You know that you purposefully said things to guide them into becoming your weapons. You and I know this, Jiang Muming said calmly. Gu Manli swallowed nervously. Taking a meaningful look at her, and seeing her nervousness, Jiang Muming turned to leave. Looking at her back, Gu Manli frowned. She felt that Jiang Muming was different from the country girl she had imagined. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also very smart. The aura that she showed was no less than her, someone who was the niece of the military commander. Thinking about how the person Qin Muye liked had always been Jiang Muming, Gu Manli's eyes were filled with despair. With the departure of Qin Wan and Wang Guifin, Jiang Muming's life had finally returned to normal. Because of the separation, even if Wang Guifin was ever released from prison, she and Qin Muye would no longer be obligated to give her money. Besides, Qin Muye had already been given to his second uncle, so even if Jiang Muming didn't want to support her, no one could say anything about it. Back at home, Jiang Muming, who was in a great mood, decided to treat herself. So since the weather was a bit hot, Jiang Muming decided to make herself some fruit-shaved ice. Because it had been too long since she last ate it, she had no self-control. The result of this was that when Qin Muye returned home, Jiang Muming had a stomach ache from eating too much cold shaved ice. "Honestly, how can you eat so much at once?" Qin Muye said with a frown, his eyebrows filled with worry. Jiang Muming clutched her stomach in pain, puffed out her cheeks, and looked at him resentfully. "I'm in so much pain, and you're still scolding me." As she spoke, Jiang Muming used the last of her strength to cover herself with the blanket and angrily decided to ignore him. Seeing her like this, Qin Muye didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said gently, "I'm not scolding you. I'm just worried about you." Jiang Muming remained under the blanket, ignoring him. Seeing this, Qin Muye was defeated. "All right, I won't make you mad. I'll go get you some scallion and ginger water." Hearing this, Jiang Muming poked her head out from the blanket. "What's that?" "It helps to expel the cold. You can use it when you have a cold from the cold air. Try it out to see how it works," Qin Muye explained. Jiang Muming nodded. "If it doesn't work, I'm not going to talk to you." Hearing her childlike words, Qin Muye's gaze softened. "Okay." Saying that, Qin Muye helped her put the blanket back on and got up to leave. Jiang Muming looked at Qin Muye's back, the corners of her lips slightly upturned. She liked being pampered, and she liked being pampered by him even more. Qin Muye made the scallion and ginger water, and after Jiang Muming drank it all in one go, she broke out into a sweat. Afterwards, her stomach really felt much better. Seeing that she had regained her energy, Qin Muye lovingly ruffled her hair. "See if you dare to eat anything cold again." "I still dare," Jiang Muming said with a nod. "Next time, I'll eat it when the weather is hotter. This time, it's definitely not because I ate too much. It must be because the weather wasn't hot enough. That must be it." Seeing her reaction, Qin Muye pinched her cheek. "Oh you, I really don't know what to do with you." Looking up, Jiang Muming smiled brightly. "Husband, I'm hungry." Hearing her sweet voice, Qin Muye nodded. "I'll go cook for you." "Okay," Jiang Muming said with a radiant smile. Qin Muye turned and headed towards the kitchen. In no time, Qin Muye made several dishes, and Jiang Muming and Qin Muye sat opposite each other. "You were poisoned these past few days, so your digestive system hasn't recovered yet. I'll go get you some chicken, duck, and pigeons later to eat. You'll wash it, and I'll stew it for you," Jiang Muming said truthfully. "Ningning won't do it herself? I'm so kind. I'll never kill any living creatures," Jiang Muming said seriously. Hearing this reason, Qin Muye followed her lead and responded dotingly, "Yes, yes, my wife is the kindest. She just likes eating rabbits, chicks, ducks, and those fish and shrimps." Jiang Muming looked up at the ceiling. The wind was too strong, and she couldn't hear anything. The smile in Qin Muye's eyes deepened. After dinner, the two of them went for a walk around the family compound. Qin Muye had only wanted to stroll around the yard, but Jiang Muming insisted sweetly that she wanted to walk around the compound. As someone who always listened to his wife, Qin Muye had no choice but to agree. Thus, a beautiful scene was created in the compound. Qin Muye was holding Jiang Muming's hand, and they were walking around the compound together. When Jiang Muming spoke, Qin Muye would turn his head and listen carefully. His deep eyes were filled with a tenderness that he couldn't hide. Seeing this, the neighbors who passed by all looked at them and praised them for how good their relationship was. I heard before that Commander Qin was very cold to girls and didn't want to talk much. But look at him now. He's so gentle to Sister Muming. Those eyes are like he wants to be glued to her. If I had a wife as pretty as the commander's wife, I'd also be gentle, a soldier said enviously. You can tell, Commander Qin likes his little wife a lot. Hearing these words, Gu Monli silently watched the couple from afar. Although she had seen Qin Muye being gentle with Jiang Muming before, when she learned that Jiang Muming was the girl he had always been thinking about, that feeling became even stronger. Even if she had doubts before, seeing it with her own eyes now, Gu Monli finally believed the things that Jiang Muming had said. Qin Muye's love for Jiang Muming was probably far more than she had imagined. Would she be able to steal a man like that? Chapter 91. I'm not close to her. Why would I have feelings for her? No longer needing to engage in a battle of wits with Wang Guifan, Jiang Muming focused all her energy on her business. Since deciding to start a seafood processing workshop and wholesale business, Jiang Muming and Jiang Hong had been working tirelessly on preparations. Because the chosen storefront didn't require extensive renovations, they quickly secured a location. When they arrived at the rented shop, they found that the shipments of seafood were already arriving. There were not only various kinds of fish, but also prawns and mantis shrimp. Several hired workers were diligently sorting the acquired seafood. Did you go off island yesterday? Jiang Muming asked curiously. How did the talks go? Jiang Hong patted his chest. With me on the job, how could anything go wrong? I've already secured deals with 2 large state-run restaurants. They'll buy our seafood at wholesale prices, and we'll provide them with a consistent supply. Right now, there aren't that many private restaurants. We can't just rely on supplying them. We also need to rent a storefront off-island to sell seafood. Once business picks up and we're making more money, we can even set up a seafood market. Jiang Muming said seriously, and Jiang Hong nodded in agreement. This island was relatively poor, so it wouldn't be easy to make the business thrive here. The island wasn't their primary market. Their market was off-island. This was just a transitional period. All the seafood they harvested would be categorized by quality. The best quality would be sold directly, while smaller or slightly lower quality seafood would be processed. After all, for the inland market, with the current state of transportation, it was more suitable to sell processed seafood. For smaller fish like yellow croaker, Jiang Muming had Jiang Hong use vacuum packaging. Other fish would be dried or salted. After discussing the details, Jiang Muming and Jiang Hong started processing the seafood together. Around noon, Jiang Hong and Jiang Muming went out to eat at a local restaurant. After ordering a few dishes, Jiang Hong said with a smile, "Boss, a plate of peanuts first." "All right, please wait a moment, you two," the restaurant owner said with a beaming smile. Seeing that they had ordered mostly fish dishes, the owner was practically grinning from ear to ear. Soon, the fried peanuts were brought to their table. "Do you know how much money you have, and does your husband know?" Jiang Hong asked curiously, munching on the peanuts. Jiang Muming calmly replied, "No, he hasn't asked." Qin Muye wouldn't ask too many questions about Jiang Muming's business, nor would he inquire about how much she earned. You shouldn't just be honest and tell him everything. Women still need a little stash of their own, Jiang Hong advised frankly, especially with how his family is, they're not good people. "Got it," she said. "By the way, did you get that issue resolved?" Jiang Hong remembered the incident. Jiang Muming made an okay gesture, replying with a touch of pride, "Of course. Wang Guifan is in prison, and Qin Wan also paid the price for her actions. I doubt they'll cause any trouble in the future." Hearing her words, Jiang Hong chewed and said, "That's good. You've avenged the original host." Jiang Muming hummed in agreement. "I hope the original host is satisfied with this outcome. You're efficient, resolving everything so quickly." "That's because they were greedy. I had planned to resolve their issues once my relationship with Qin Muye was more stable, but they couldn't wait to throw themselves into their own doom. So, I, of course, had to give them an opportunity. However, there's still one person left." Jiang Hong was curious. "Who?" "Gu Monli. Is that the female lead from the book?" "Yeah." Jiang Muming picked up a peanut. "That little peach that intercepted the call. It was because she was a fan of them as a couple. Her female-led halo is very powerful. When Wang Guifin came to the army to cause trouble, she helped fuel it. Zhang Heng stared at her in shock. This female lead is quite evil. My image of her just shattered. Tell me about it, Jiang Muming complained. She set her eyes on Qin Muye before he even divorced the original host. How could such a woman be a female lead? What do you plan to do? I'm still thinking about it. Although she didn't directly intervene in the original book, her female lead halo made it impossible for the original host to seek help, which indirectly led to her tragedy. If only I could take away her protagonist halo. The restaurant owner brought the dishes to the table. Here comes the fresh yellow croaker. Please enjoy. Zhang Heng started to eat. Let's not think about it now. Eating comes first. Jiang Muming nodded and decided to eat first. Meanwhile, at the army base, Qin Muye was having lunch in the cafeteria. Why aren't you eating at home today? Lu Haoding, holding a tray, walked over and asked. Qin Muye did not look up. My wife is busy with her business. Hearing this, Lu Haoding was surprised. Business? I didn't expect your sister-in-law to be someone who likes to strive. She's definitely different from the girls who just want to be housewives. Qin Muye didn't deny it. Jiang Muming was different from the girls he had met. As he was eating, a voice sounded, Commander Qin, Major Lu, may I sit here? Qin Muye and Lu Haoding looked up at the same time and saw Gu Monli smiling at them. Lu Haoding had just opened his mouth to say yes, but before he could get the word out, Qin Muye coldly refused, no. Gu Monli's smile froze. But there's an empty seat here. There are also empty seats at other tables, Qin Muye said coldly. Dr. Gu, people talk? Hearing his words, Gu Monli's face turned pale. She slowly nodded. I understand. She then turned away, tray in hand. Your attitude toward Dr. Gu is truly ruthless, Lu Haoding commented. I'm not close to her. Why would I have feelings for her? Qin Muye said coldly. Hearing his words, Gu Monli bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. Qin Muye finished his meal and left the cafeteria first. As soon as he walked out, he saw Gu Monli chasing after him. Commander Qin, can I talk to you? Gu Monli looked at him, her face filled with sincerity. Make it quick, Qin Muye said tersely. Looking at the man in front of her, she noticed that he was completely different from the man he was with Jiang Muming. Gu Monli looked at him and asked with a slight smile, how is your relationship with Miss Jiang? My relationship with my wife is fine. It doesn't require you to worry about it, Qin Muye replied expressionlessly. Gu Monli finally realized that every time Qin Muye introduced Jiang Muming, he said, my wife. Then you guys? Dr. Gu, I'm not close enough to you to discuss my wife. Say what you need to say directly. I'm busy. Qin Muye urged, needing to get away from her quickly to avoid being seen and misunderstood. People were quick to gossip, and if any rumors spread to Jiang Muming's ears, what would he do if she got angry and ignored him? Sensing his impatience, Gu Monli's heart tightened. She took a deep breath and said with courage, Commander Qin, I like you. After you saved me, I fell in love with you. Chapter 92. To behave shamelessly, isn't that just seeking suffering? Gu Monli had considered that no matter what the outcome, she wanted to tell him her feelings. Perhaps she still had. I don't like you, Qin Muye refused without hesitation, stepping back to create distance between them. Seeing his reaction, Gu Monli was stunned. You. Dr. Gu, I don't want to hear such words a second time. You need to quickly get rid of those feelings and stop having unrealistic fantasies about me. I don't like you now, and I definitely won't like you in the future. Qin Muye's words were cold and ruthless, piercing her heart. Tears welled up in Gu Monli's eyes. Commander Qin, don't look at me like that. It doesn't work on me. Gu Monli, I hope you recognize reality. Don't try any tricks on my wife, or I'll kill you. Gu Monli stared blankly at him. She had finally worked up the courage to confess, only to be rejected and threatened. Seeing him so cold and heartless, Gu Monli felt as if she had been deeply hurt and ran away crying. In the evening, because Qin Muye had night training, he didn't have time to go home for dinner. So, Jiang Muming took the initiative to bring him his food. However, as soon as she arrived at the base, she overheard gossip about Gu Monli and Qin Muye. In the office, Jiang Muming watched the man eat with gusto, resting her chin on her hands as she curiously asked, I heard this morning that you made Dr. Gu cry? And her eyes were all swollen. Qin Muye remained unfazed. Probably, I didn't pay much attention. As he said this, Qin Muye took another large bite of food. He didn't need to care about any other woman except Jiang Muming. He wasn't the ocean. He didn't need to worry about everything. Jiang Muming, listening to his words, asked with a gossip-filled expression. Why did she suddenly start crying? Did you say something to her? Qin Muye looked at her gossipy expression, thought for a moment, then told her about how she had confessed at noon and was rejected. I didn't expect her to confess so quickly, huh? You are already married. I thought she would keep it hidden. She was probably crying because her self-esteem was hurt, Qin Muye calmly replied. Dramatic. Looking at his eyes, Jiang Muming could feel that he had no feelings for Gu Manli. You were quite decisive with your rejection, Jiang Muming praised. I could never like her. Why would I give her hope? Qin Muye retorted. To like someone so shamelessly, isn't that just seeking suffering? She was actually speechless. All these changes were probably because she had moved to the military base. Unable to watch the man she liked be intimate with another woman, she had chosen to risk a confession. Maybe she was hoping there might be some chance. Wife, what are you thinking about? Qin Muye said in a low voice. Jiang Muming snapped out of her thoughts and chuckled. I'm thinking my man is so charming. I guess I'll be busy from now on, busy chasing away all the flirty women. Qin Muye calmly replied, no need. Jiang Muming tilted her head, waiting for him to continue. I will consciously keep my distance from women. You won't need to do anything, Qin Muye truthfully said. He felt that to make his wife feel secure, it was the duty of a husband to remember at all times that he was a married man. Hearing his answer, Jiang Muming laughed. All right. Watching Qin Muye finish eating and wash his lunchbox, Jiang Muming prepared to leave. Qin Muye escorted Jiang Muming to the entrance of the military base, watched her figure return to the family residence, and then turned around and walked back the way he came. At the same time, within the family residence, Gu Manli locked herself in her room, angrily pounding on her pillow. Why do you like her but not me? How am I inferior to her? That country bumpkin. What is so good about her? Except for her face, what else is good about her? Gu Manli's eyes were filled with tears. After being rejected by Qin Muye today, she became increasingly angry and felt increasingly unwilling to accept it. Her emotions had spun out of control, and she had cried until her eyes were red, causing her colleagues to worry about her. Seeing that so many people cared about her, it only made her think that Qin Muye didn't know what was good for him. Gu Qingluo came into the room, saw her venting, and asked with concern, Sister, what's wrong? Did something happen? Seeing her crying, Gu Manli's eyes reddened. Qingluo. Seeing that she was crying, Gu Qingluo was taken aback and hurriedly comforted her. Sister, why are you crying? Gu Manli sobbed, and then told her about her rejected confession. Hearing this, Gu Qingluo said indignantly, How can he be like that? Qin Muye is really too much. That you like him is a favor to him. How can he treat you like that? Seeing her standing up for her, Gu Manli's eyes flashed with calculation, and she said with melancholy, It's because I'm not good enough for Commander Qin. It's because I'm shameless for liking him. Sister, you're talking nonsense. It's Qin Muye who isn't worthy of your affection. For you to like him is an honor for him, Gu Qingluo said to comfort her. In her opinion, Gu Manli was pretty and had a good personality. For her to have taken a fancy to Qin Muye, who was from the countryside, that was good fortune for him. But how did he treat her? He had even been ungrateful and bullied Gu Manli. He never used to be so fierce with me before. I wonder if Miss Jiang is saying bad things about me to him, Gu Manli sighed. Hearing the mention of Jiang Muming, Gu Qingluo became angry. It must be because she is always saying bad things about you. That's why Qin Muye is treating you this way. What can I do? After all, she's Commander Qin's wife. Gu Manli choked. My love, it's destined to have no result. But Qingluo, I really like him. Seeing her crying silently, Gu Qingluo felt sorry for her. She and Gu Manli had been close since childhood, and she had always taken care of her like a big sister. Seeing her cry for a man, Gu Qingluo was heartbroken, and she resented Qin Muye and Jiang Muming. Putting her hands on her shoulders, Gu Qingluo comforted her. Sister, don't be sad, that Jiang Muming is bullying you. I'll help you teach her a lesson. Hearing this, Gu Manli softly said, It's better not to. You wanted to teach her a lesson before, but you ended up being taught a lesson very badly? Gu Manli's words immediately provoked Gu Qingluo, and Gu Qingluo angrily said, This time I will definitely teach her a lesson and vent your anger. Qingluo. Sister, don't worry. I just came up with a plan. This time, I can definitely do it without being noticed. Maybe Jiang Muming won't be an obstacle for you anymore, Gu Qingluo said with narrowed eyes. Gu Manli looked at her with sincere eyes and held her hand tightly. Qingluo, thank you for being so good to me. We're sisters, of course we have to help each other, Gu Qingluo said with a smile. Gu Monli softly hummed, her eyes filled with dark calculation. How perfect! This fool is going to help her again. Chapter 93. Reduced to a laughingstock. Early in the morning, Jiang Muming woke up early, which was rare, and after washing up, she prepared to go out for breakfast. There was a breakfast shop in the family compound. She had gone there once a couple of days ago when Qin Muye wasn't home, and the food was pretty good. Humming a song, Jiang Muming's steps seemed light. It was said that enemies often meet on a narrow road, and as Jiang Muming passed in front of Gu Changjing's house, she just happened to run into the Gu sisters. For a moment, there was silence in the air. Gu Monli forced a smile. Miss Jiang. Miss Gu is really forgetful. I said before that you shouldn't call me Miss Jiang. Did you forget? Jiang Muming said with a chuckle. Seeing her appearance, Gu Monli lowered her eyes, as if hurt, and opened her mouth with grievance. Mrs. Jiang. Oh, I heard that Miss Gu confessed to my husband and was rejected, and her eyes were swollen from crying. Is this true? Jiang Muming asked with feigned concern. Gu Monli tightly grasped her skirt, as if extremely humiliated. Seeing this, Gu Qingluo said angrily, Jiang Muming, are you doing this on purpose? Do you want to humiliate my sister? Jiang Muming blinked her big eyes. How could this be considered humiliation? This is just stating the facts. My man is already married, and you? An unmarried girl, publicly confessed to a married soldier. If you don't want to be humiliated, how can you expect others to give you face? Jiang Muming's voice was not soft, and the military wives who passed by curiously cast glances at them. No way. Miss Gu confessed to Commander Qin? She openly likes a man with a wife. She's so shameless. That's right, I didn't see that coming. Hearing these words, Gu Monli's eyes reddened. She bowed and apologized. I'm sorry, I just wanted to express my gratitude to Commander Qin for saving me. Oh, so expressing gratitude means liking a married man. Miss Gu's way of expressing gratitude is really special. Jiang Muming mocked. Seeing the way the people around her were pointing and whispering, Gu Monli only felt embarrassed. She had never been humiliated like this before in her life. Gu Monli lowered her head. I'm sorry. After saying that, Gu Monli covered her face and ran away in shame. Sister, sister. Gu Qingluo shouted anxiously. Seeing Gu Monli being driven away in anger, Gu Qingluo pointed at her angrily. You're so vicious. Oh, your sister who covets a married soldier is so kind. You're defending your sister so much. Could it be that you are too? Jiang Muming asked curiously. Hearing these words, Gu Qingluo's face turned red with anger. You're talking nonsense. I'm just making a reasonable guess. Jiang Muming calmly replied, Put your hand down, or else I don't mind. Jiang Muming gave a brilliant smile and made a snapping gesture, twisting it off. Having heard that she had previously beaten Wang Guifan up, Gu Qingluo angrily withdrew her hand. You just wait, Gu Qingluo said and ran off angrily. Jiang Muming watched their backs, curious about what Gu Monli was thinking that she had chosen to confess. Once the confession failed, she would become a laughingstock. Or was she so confident in herself that she thought there was a high probability of success? The weather was getting warmer, and the jasmine flowers she planted before had bloomed. Jiang Muming took out scissors and began to select the pretty flowers to cut. Jiang Muming. A crisp voice sounded, and Jiang Muming looked over with curiosity and saw Jiang Hong walking in with a happy mood. How did you get in? How come I feel like you can come and go freely in the family compound? Jiang Muming asked in surprise. This was the military family compound. Normally, you couldn't just enter as you pleased. Of course, it's because of my charm, Jiang Hong said proudly. Actually, it was because Qin Muye had already told the guards at the gate that if he came to look for Jiang Muming, they didn't need to stop him. Jiang Muming rolled her eyes, not believing his words. Jiang Hong went forward, looked at the jasmine flowers, bent down and smelled them. They smell really good. Give me a bouquet of these flowers. Jiang Muming cut off a branch of flowers and said casually, I was planning to give them to you anyway. I remember you like jasmine. It's just enough to freshen up your stinky room. Hearing that it was a gift for him, Jiang Hong happily stood next to her, placing his hand on her shoulder. I'll give you some credit for being so thoughtful. The next second, Jiang Muming's elbow went backward, directly hitting his chest. Be mindful of your actions. What if someone reports us for being too close? Jiang Hong rubbed his chest, which was hurting from her impact. I'm your brother, who's so free they'd bother to report me. That's right, he was her brother. The two of them had come to this world, and although they still bickered like before, they both treated each other as their only family. Plus, in this era, they were blood-related. They both understood that no matter how much they argued, they would never hold a grudge against each other. She stuffed the cut jasmine flowers into his hands. Go put them in the vase in the living room. Hearing this, Jiang Hung pushed the roses back into her arms. You know I have no sense of aesthetics. I don't know how to arrange flowers. You do it yourself. Then what did you come here for? Of course, I came to freeload a meal. I got a lot of big crabs in the space warehouse today. Why don't you make a crab hot pot tonight to try? Jiang Hung said with a grin. Jiang Muming's eyebrows twitched. I'm going to take a nap soon. Jiang Muming had a habit of taking naps. If she didn't sleep at noon, she always felt out of sorts. Jiang Hung patted his chest. I'll take your nap for you. You keep at it. As he said this, Jiang Hung turned around and dashed toward the room without waiting for Jiang Muming to refuse. Jiang Muming lifted her hand to her forehead. Why is this kid still so childish? Jiang Hung had originally wanted to go to the guest room, but seeing that the guest room was not tidy, he came to Qin Muye and Jiang Muming's room. The last time Jiang Muming had said she wanted to eat fresh crabs, so today he had spent a good amount of time searching during low tide. Finally, he had found a few pounds of big crabs, some of which were very large. They would surely be delicious steamed. Stretching his limbs, Jiang Hung, who had woken up early, felt sleepy. He fell back onto the bed and fell asleep immediately. Jiang Hung was asleep on the bed, while Jiang Muming was in the kitchen. When nobody was around, she took out the crabs from the space. Looking at the big, plump crab, Jiang Muming's eyes sparkled with delight. This kid has a good eye. We can eat well tonight. Picking up a crab, Jiang Muming began to wash it. At that moment, a figure quickly flashed past in front of the main room. The figure was hunched over and stealthily came to the outside of the room. Gu Qingluo was wearing gauze on her face, only revealing her eyes. She held a bamboo basket and looked at the half-open door. She had previously heard that Jiang Muming had a habit of taking a nap at this time and was usually sleeping. Looking inside, Gu Qingluo could vaguely see a figure. Thinking about how Jiang Muming had dared to bully Gu Monli, Gu Qingluo's teeth itched with anger. She wanted to teach Jiang Muming a good lesson, give her some punishment. She opened the bamboo basket and positioned the opening toward the inside of the room. A red-banded snake slithered out of the basket, wriggling towards the inside of the room. Seeing the snake successfully enter the room, Gu Qingluo ran out quickly, holding the basket. As soon as Gu Qingluo reached the outside of the door, she heard a scream come from inside the room. Ah! Chapter 94. You said it. So how did she manipulate you into dealing with me? Hearing a man's voice coming from inside the room, Gu Qingluo was surprised. It's not Jiang Muming? Startled, Gu Qingluo wanted to go back and check the situation, but she saw Jiang Muming quickly running towards the room. Jiang Hung. Seeing this, Gu Qingluo realized that the snake seemed to have bitten the wrong person. Having no time to think more, Gu Qingluo quickly ran away, worried that she would be seen. Jiang Muming ran quickly into the room and couldn't help but be shocked. She saw a thick, red-banded snake spitting its tongue at Jiang Hung. Jiang Hung was holding the snake's head tightly, the two locked in a stalemate. Seeing Jiang Muming wanting to step forward, Jiang Hung quickly said, "Don't come over." Jiang Muming had been afraid of snakes since she was little, and Jiang Hung was afraid she would faint from fright. Taking advantage of the moment, Jiang Hung grabbed the snake's head and slammed it hard on the ground. He slammed it a few times, and the red-banded snake finally fainted. Jiang Hung instantly lost his strength. Jiang Muming rushed over and helped Jiang Hung up. She then noticed 2 teeth marks on his wrist. This snake is poisonous. I'll go get some spirit spring water, Jiang Muming exclaimed and ran quickly to the kitchen. Lu Mei just happened to be entering the courtyard and said with a smile, "Munin, sister-in-law, I have an emergency. My brother was bitten by a poisonous snake that suddenly appeared," Jiang Muming said quickly. Hearing this, Lu Mei was startled. A poisonous snake? Then I'll go call for a doctor right away. Okay, thank you, sister-in-law. The two of them acted separately. Jiang Muming went to get the water, and Lu Mei went to find a doctor. Soon, the news about the snake in Jiang Muming's house spread throughout the family compound. Many people came to see what happened in Qin Muye. Having heard the news, rushed back. Qin Muye hurriedly entered the house. "Munin, are you okay?" Qin Muye held Jiang Muming's shoulders and quickly checked her condition. Jiang Muming's face was pale, her voice clearly trembling. "I'm fine." It was Jiang Hung who was bitten by the snake. Hearing this, Qin Muye looked at the bed and noticed Jiang Hung lying there with a pale face. Walking forward and holding his hand, Qin Muye asked in a low voice, "How are you?" Jiang Hung slowly opened his eyes, frowning. I'm okay. The poison in my body is probably gone. It just hurts a little where the snake bit me. This snake is poisonous. Luckily, sister-in-law Lu Mei got a doctor here in time, Jiang Muming said, still shaken. Although the spirit spring in the space could detoxify him instantly, the sight of the poisonous snake had made Jiang Muming instinctively afraid. Qin Muye thanked Lu Mei gratefully. Thank you, sister-in-law. You're welcome. I just happened to be there. But how did a red-banded snake appear out of nowhere? Red-banded snakes are usually found in fields. Lu Mei asked, confused. Yes, I've lived in this family compound for so many years, and it's the first time I've seen a snake here, someone chimed in. Hearing this, Jiang Muming clenched her fists and said seriously, Mayan, I suspect that someone deliberately let this snake in. As her voice fell, everyone looked at her, including Qin Muye. Why do you say that? I was in the yard and kitchen for quite some time, but I didn't see the snake. Also, at this time of day, it's usually my nap time. I don't think this is an accident, Jiang Muming said seriously. And sister-in-law said that red-banded snakes are usually in the fields. Hearing her analysis, Qin Muye thought it made sense. I will get someone to investigate right now. Wait, Jiang Muming stopped him. Prioritize investigating Gu Qingluo and Gu Monli. I had a conflict with them this morning. Hearing her suspicion, Qin Muye's eyes sharpened. It's them again. Okay. After saying that, Qin Muye left to deal with it immediately. Everyone stayed in the room for a while before leaving. The crowd in the room dispersed, leaving only Jiang Muming and Jiang Heng. I shouldn't have come to my room to sleep, suffering this pain for nothing. Jiang Muming sat on the edge of the bed, watching him look so weak, and felt bad. Jiang Heng lazily opened his eyes. It's lucky it was me who got bitten. If it was you, you would have been scared to death. With your small amount of courage, you might have even died from shock. Although death wasn't likely, red-banded snakes were only mildly poisonous, but based on Jiang Muming's fear of snakes, she might have been scared to death. Hearing his complaint, Jiang Muming did not refute it. Looking at him, she said sincerely, Thank you for helping me avoid trouble. Jiang Heng replied calmly, I'm your brother. An elder brother is like a father. It's not easy being a father. Jiang Muming's mouth twitched, and she slapped him on the head. You brat. Jiang Muming, how can you talk to your brother like that? Brother, you'd better rest well, say less and keep some strength. It is immoral for you to treat your brother like this. I'm going to report it to the Central Committee. Jiang Muming couldn't help but throw him a disgusted look. This man is a moron, right? While Jiang Muming was talking to Jiang Heng, Qin Muye had already started a swift investigation. Because the time since the incident had been short, it was relatively easy to investigate. Because the people in the family compound had never seen such a red-banded snake, and because red-banded snakes like to stay in farmland, it was natural to suspect that the snake had come from outside. In addition, Jiang Muming had emphasized that she had a conflict with Gu Monli and Gu Qingluo that morning, so the two of them became the main suspects. Under such circumstances, the guards quickly remembered that Gu Qingluo had a bamboo basket on her back when she came back that morning. Thinking of this, Qin Muye immediately filed a report to obtain a search warrant and directly brought people to the Gu family for a search. They did indeed find a bamboo basket in an inconspicuous corner. It was already close to 6 o'clock, and Gu Qingluo and Gu Monli were both at home. Gu Qingluo didn't expect to be discovered and denied it adamantly, so what if this bamboo basket is mine? I just use it to carry things. Many neighbors had gathered in the courtyard, curiously watching the scene in front of them. Yes, Commander Qin, is there some misunderstanding? How could my daughter do such a thing? Zhang Haiteng couldn't help but say. Jiang Muming walked out of the crowd. Hasn't she done these things before? Yeah, before she even dressed up as a ghost to scare the commander's wife. Zhang Haiteng tried to explain, but Qin Muye, holding the bamboo basket, showed it to everyone. This bamboo basket has snake scales. How do you explain that? Hearing this, everyone gathered closer and indeed saw snake scales inside. It really is snake scales, then that means it was used to carry a snake. It really was done by the Gu commander's daughter. Gu Qingluo widened her eyes in panic and nervously didn't know what to say. Zhang Haiteng was shocked and grabbed her hand tightly. Qingluo, is it really you? You're so confused. Why did you go and provoke her again? Zhang Haiteng was so angry at Gu Qingluo. Why did she always have to be at odds with Jiang Muming? Hearing this, Gu Qingluo angrily said, Isn't it because she bullies my sister? She made my sister cry. Hearing this, everyone turned to look at Gu Monli. Because Gu Monli failed to confess to my man. I said the truth, and I'm the one at fault? Jiang Muming said coldly. Gu Qingluo angrily spoke up for Gu Manli. If it wasn't for you having to cling to Commander Qin, relying on your marriage, it would have been my sister who married. Commander Qin, how is she inferior to you? Just because she didn't have a marriage contract with him, you are the bad person who destroyed their relationship. Hearing this, Qin Muye's face darkened and he clenched his fists. Even without a marriage contract, I wouldn't like Comrade Gu Manli. His voice was forceful, and by saying such words in front of so many people, he gave Gu Manli absolutely no face. Gu Qingluo said angrily, "You were all bewitched by her." Jiang Muming chuckled. "How come your good sister didn't tell you that I'm the one my man has always liked? He has had a crush on me for many years and is deeply in love with me." Gu Qingluo paused for a few seconds. "What?" Jiang Muming curled her lips and looked at Gu Manli with a smile. "Oh right, of course she wouldn't tell you that I'm the one Qin Muye has loved for many years. How would she manipulate you to deal with me if she did?" Chapter 95. Gu Manli, you've lost. You've lost completely. As Jiang Muming's words fell, everyone looked at Gu Manli, including Gu Qingluo. "Sister, did you know that Commander Qin has always liked this woman?" Gu Qingluo looked at her in disbelief. Before, Gu Manli often said that if Jiang Muming hadn't appeared, then she would have been able to marry Qin Muye. Over time, Gu Qingluo also thought so, believing that Jiang Muming had destroyed their relationship. Gu Manli was a bit nervous, but the expression on her face remained calm. "That's what she said, but I think that was only her point of view." "Only my point of view? I told you that I'm the one Qin Muye loved, and Qin Muye has also seriously rejected you. Plus, how good Qin Muye has been to me since we got married. Do you really think that was only my point of view? You just needed a knife," Jiang Muming said, and her gaze fell on Gu Qingluo, who was standing there, stunned. Her face as white as paper. "Gu Manli is your sister, and she knows you so well. Wouldn't she know that you're an impulsive person? Knowing that you are impulsive and will stand up for her, why did she say all those things to you? Wasn't she afraid that you would do something wrong in a fit of anger?" Jiang Muming's questioning made Gu Qingluo just stand there foolishly, her face pale as paper. "She was just sad that you bullied her. So you told you to take action against me and get revenge on me. So, you came up with the idea to use the poisonous snake to deal with me," Jiang Muming said, following her words. Gu Qingluo did not refute her. Gu Manli saw that everyone's eyes were changing and quickly said, "Miss Jiang, please don't make false accusations. I told Qingluo some private things, but I didn't expect that she would let out a poisonous snake to bite you. You didn't know that she would release the poisonous snake, but you knew that she would definitely take action. Who doesn't know that Gu Qingluo is impulsive and thoughtless?" Jiang Muming laughed. "You used her to take the fall and act as a gun for you and make her do all the bad things." Gu Qingluo looked at Gu Manli in shock. "Sister, is what she's saying true? Did you really use me to deal with her?" Gu Manli was the sister she had respected since she was little. She had actually used her in this way. Zhang Haitang stepped forward. "Qingluo has always been impulsive. If it wasn't for standing up for you, how could she do such a thing? Gu Manli, we have treated you so well. How can you instigate Qingluo like this?" Zhang Haitang was very angry. Gu Qingluo would definitely be arrested for releasing a poisonous snake to bite someone. Now, she had to stand on the same side as Jiang Muming and condemn Gu Manli. Only then would there be a chance to reduce the punishment. Gu Manli's pupils widened, and the development of events had exceeded expectations. "Auntie, about this matter, what you're best at is still scheming behind the scenes. You clearly wanted to kill me, but you will rely on other people to achieve your goal," Jiang Muming said leisurely. Hearing this, Deng Suiping asked curiously, "Why do you say that, Munin, my dear sister?" Jiang Muming continued, "As everyone knows, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law came here some time ago and caused a lot of trouble. Gu Manli was involved in all of this." Qin Muye was surprised. "Her?" Gu Manli clenched her fists tightly. "I didn't." "Didn't?" Jiang Muming sneered. "Originally, they came here just to get money. But later, they wanted to destroy me and make me divorce my man, so as to make room for you to marry Gu Manli. Why is that, do you think?" "Oh my god, no way. So it was her." "You are talking nonsense," Gu Manli retorted anxiously. "Whether I'm talking nonsense, wouldn't it be clear if you asked in prison? It was my mother-in-law, Wang Guifan, who admitted that she wanted me to divorce Mayan so that he could marry you. She hasn't been here long, so why does she know so many people? Yet she was keen to know you, and insists that you were suitable to be her daughter-in-law. I and my sister-in-law You put a lot of thought into that too, right? Jiang Muming said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Zhang Haiteng spoke up, I know about this. Before Commander Qin's sister came to find Gu Monli, and the two looked very close. Gu Monli, I didn't see you as that kind of person. You really have ruined Qingluo? Not expecting things to turn out the way they did today, Gu Qingluo felt a kind of helplessness and didn't know what to say. Seeing her like this, Gu Qingluo finally believed that she had been used, and excitedly grabbed Gu Monli's shoulders. How could you use me like this? You cried to me. I stood up for you. Jiang Muming watched coldly, her icy gaze falling on Gu Monli. She probably hadn't expected that Gu Qingluo, this knife, would turn on her so quickly. At this time, the police appeared. Who released the snake to bite Comrade Zhang Heng? Please come with us to assist with the investigation. Jiang Muming pointed at Gu Qingluo. She's the one who released the snake. The police made a gesture, and someone immediately grabbed Gu Qingluo. At that moment, anger filled her eyes. I did it all for Gu Monli. She instigated me. That's right. It's all Gu Monli. Zhang Haiteng said angrily, echoing the statement. So, the police took Gu Qingluo and Gu Monli away. Gu Monli glared at Jiang Muming fiercely as she passed her. Seeing this scene, Jiang Muming remained calm. I didn't see that Gu Monli was so vicious. That's right, I always thought she was a very gentle girl, but I never thought. It's true that you can never judge a book by its cover. That's right. This was the military family compound, and Jiang Muming believed that word would spread quickly. At that time, the good image that Gu Monli had cultivated over the years in the military would be completely ruined. That so-called female-led halo would probably shatter into pieces. Because this incident happened in the military family compound, and the matter had caused a negative impact, neither Gu Monli nor Gu Qingluo was able to be bailed out, and could only be kept in the detention center, awaiting their trial. Gu Monli had schemed so much, but didn't expect Gu Qingluo and Zhang Haiteng to both accuse her of being the mastermind. Even if she refused to admit it, she still couldn't be released. She had never expected that, under these circumstances, Jiang Muming would come to see her. What are you doing here? Watching me make a fool of myself? Gu Monli looked at her resentfully. That's right, I want to see how miserable you are now. Jiang Muming said, her face glowing. The female lead who was given all kinds of honors in the end of the book, never thought that she would become a prisoner. Gu Monli clenched her fists tightly, glaring at her resentfully. It's all because of you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be like this. Jiang Muming crossed her arms and looked at her through the bars. This is all your own fault. Those who harm others will ultimately harm themselves. Haven't you ever learned this? You schemed so much. Wasn't it just so you could get Qin Muye? Gu Monli didn't refute it. But it's a pity. He will never like you in this lifetime, Jiang Muming said calmly. Don't mention that I'm still alive and well, even if I died. Qin Muye wouldn't look at you even once. You'll never be able to warm his heart. Gu Monli was enraged. Don't mock me. Mock? This is stating the facts, Jiang Muming said calmly. Moreover, you are definitely staying in this jail. I forgot to tell you, you've already been fired from the military. You're not a military doctor anymore. Gu Monli's eyes widened in terror. Not only that, but probably no military units will want you in the future either, and all your previous efforts have been for nothing, Jiang Muming said with a harmless smile. And I've heard that Commander Gu is very angry, and Madame Gu has even said that you have nothing to do with the Gu family. Gu Monli felt as if all the blood in her body had congealed. Jiang Muming walked forward and bent down to say, Gu Monli, you've lost. You've lost completely. From now on, you have no halo. You're just shame and a joke. You have no chance to turn things around. Chapter 96. Publicly abandoned vs surrounded by family and loved ones. Gu Monli stared blankly at her, her mind spinning. No, it can't be. You have reaped what you sowed. You destroyed yourself with your own hands. After leaving these words behind, Jiang Muming turned and left with a flourish. Gu Monli instantly lost all her strength and collapsed to the ground. Why is it like this? Things shouldn't have turned out this way. Gu Monli covered her head, unable to believe the situation before her. Jiang Muming walked out of the detention center and saw Qin Muye standing there. His tall and strong body now carried a broken feeling, as if he had suffered a huge blow. Jiang Muming came in front of him and pinched his cheek. What are you thinking about? Qin Muye's focus landed on Jiang Muming, and he said in a hoarse voice, I'm sorry, I must be a calamity in your life. Listening to his words, Jiang Muming was stunned. If it wasn't for me, these things wouldn't have happened. Even if I don't want to admit it, these harms are all because of me, Qin Muye said, sounding hoarse and self-blaming. Whether it was Wang Guifan hurting her, or Gu Manli directing Gu Qingluo to hurt her, the starting point was related to him, and the dream she had mentioned. Jiang Muming looked at him and nodded. You're right, it's all because of you. It seems like you really are a calamity in my life. I guess I'll often get hurt by being by your side. In that case, why don't I push away this calamity of yours? Before she could finish speaking, Qin Muye immediately hugged her tightly. He was hugging her with a lot of force, afraid that Jiang Muming would actually push him away. No, you can't. Qin Muye hugged her tightly, wishing he could meld her into his body. I can spend my whole life making up for the harm I've caused you. I will treat you well my entire life. I only ask you not to leave me. These past half a year together, Qin Muye had already fallen deeply in love with Jiang Muming. He could no longer get used to losing her. How could he go on without her? Jiang Muming didn't agree right away. Then I need to think about it carefully. Munin, I'm sorry. Qin Muye apologized, holding her tightly. Hearing his words, Jiang Muming's heartstrings were touched. Her eyelashes trembled lightly, and after a long silence, Jiang Muming raised her hand and placed it on his back. Seeing that your attitude is pretty sincere, I'll grudgingly accept your apology, Jiang Muming said with a smile. You have to treat me well in the future, otherwise I will abandon you. There are so many men in the world. Before Jiang Muming could finish speaking, Qin Muye directly kissed her lips. He didn't want to hear those words, so he would just use his mouth to silence her. Jiang Muming looked at the man in front of her, her eyes sparkling with laughter. Then, she closed her eyes and responded to his kiss. She was willing to give him a chance, to let him spend a lifetime making up for it. Because Gu Manli remained firm, and insisted that she didn't know Gu Qingluo would release the snake, and in the absence of other sufficient evidence, Gu Manli was sentenced to 6 months in prison. And Gu Qingluo, after Gu Changjing's continued maneuvering, because of her own impulsiveness and stupidity, paid the price of 2 years in prison. On the day both were transferred to prison, they met in the hallway. Seeing her, Gu Qingluo excitedly wanted to rush over and tear her apart, but she was stopped by the police in time. Gu Qingluo looked at the woman in front of her, her eyes filled with hatred. Gu Manli, I hate you. I never thought you would treat me like this. I've always treated you like a blood sister, but you have harmed me like this. When she heard that Gu Manli had pushed all the blame onto her to get away with it, she truly hated her to the core. Feeling her anger, Gu Manli's eyes showed guilt. I'm sorry, Qingluo, I dragged you down. Gu Qingluo laughed coldly. Stop being a hypocrite. I have seen you for who you are. All these years, I can consider my sincerity. To be wasted on a dog, meeting a poisonous woman like you. With a wicked woman like you, no wonder Qin Muye doesn't like you. Gu Manli bit her lip tightly. Even if you get out of prison in the future, this will be a stain on your entire life. You will never have a chance to turn things around. Gu Manli, this is the price you should pay. This is your retribution. Without our family's support, you are nothing more than a stray dog. Without my dad, you can no longer hold the title of a general's niece and act like a bully. Gu Manli, this is your retribution. Your retribution. Gu Qingluo was taken away by the police, and Gu Manli lowered her eyes. That's right, she had been publicly abandoned, and she no longer had her former glory. Thinking of this, Gu Manli regretted it endlessly. Why did she have to cling to Qin Muye, that one big tree, to end up in such a state? But there was no medicine for regret in this world, and she had to pay the price for her actions. When Jiang Muming found out that Gu Manli and Gu Qingluo had been sentenced, she was very happy. Those who had hurt her and the original host had paid a heavy price. This could be considered her way of giving closure to the original host. In the evening, because Jiang Muming wanted to go to the beach to relax, Qin Muye happily accompanied her. But when they arrived, they saw that Jiang Hong was also there. Qin Muye, who had originally wanted to enjoy a sweet world of two, was depressed, and their happy time together had turned into a trio. Munin, do you have a telepathic connection with your brother-in-law? Why is it that you don't need to contact him, but you can meet every time? Qin Muye said, feeling frustrated. Jiang Muming felt a little guilty. After all, the two of them shared a space. Hearing this, Jiang Hong said with a smile, Jiang Muming is my sister. I know when she farts if it will be smelly or fragrant. Hearing this analogy, Jiang Muming raised her foot and kicked him without hesitation. Ouch, Jiang Muming, are you trying to murder your brother? Jiang Hong shouted in pain. Jiang Muming rubbed her hands together. Then why don't you tell me? What do I want to do now? Seeing her appearance, Jiang Hong made a face at her. Hehe, Your little short legs can't catch me. Before his words fell, Jiang Muming ran directly towards him. Jiang Hung, you're asking for death. Seeing this, Jiang Hung took off and ran away as fast as he could. Jiang Muming used all of her strength to chase after him. Although he had been bitten by the red-banded snake before, Jiang Hung had long since recovered due to the detoxification power of the spirit spring water, plus the fact that the doctor had arrived quickly. He was now in good health and full of energy. Qin Muye stood there, watching Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung bickering. Oh, Jiang Muming, you cheated. It's just cheating. What can you do about it? Watch out. Jiang Muming picked up some sand from the ground and threw it at Jiang Hung. Jiang Hung was not to be outdone and picked up sand that had been soaked in seawater and smeared it on her face. Ah! Jiang Hung, I'm going to fight you. Qin Muye stood there, watching Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung bickering with a smile in his eyes. Before Jiang Muming appeared, his life was like still water, without any ripples. But after she appeared, he realized that there were so many colors in his life. His cold and stern face could also have expressions like laughter. Husband, I can't beat him. Come and help me. Jiang Muming, who couldn't beat him, shouted loudly at Qin Muye, seeking outside assistance. Hearing her words, Qin Muye started to move and responded in a low voice, okay. Seeing this, Jiang Hung excitedly shouted, Jiang Muming, you can't play fair. You can't get help. That's not fair. This lady, don't care about being fair. If you're so capable, why don't you go find yourself a wife? Jiang Muming said triumphantly. Seeing Qin Muye about to join the fight, Jiang Hung promptly let go and quickly ran away. Seeing this, Jiang Muming pointed at Jiang Hung with her finger. Husband, go. Qin Muye sped up, running towards him. While Jiang Hung escaped quickly, Jiang Muming stood there with her hands on her hips, laughing. Her clear laughter echoed across the beach. Chapter 97. Summer Heat and Sun Protection. As the weather grew increasingly hot, the island welcomed the peak of summer. Qin Muye had mentioned before that the island had hot summers and cold winters. At the time, Jiang Muming hadn't really felt it, but now that summer was truly here, she was certain he hadn't been lying. At lunchtime, Qin Muye finished his meal and looked at Jiang Muming, who was still sitting in front of the electric fan. Really not going to go for a walk? Before he'd finished speaking, Jiang Muming shook her head vigorously, her face full of determination. No, no way. You couldn't pay me to go out there. Not even if you tried to kill me. It was over 30 degrees Celsius outside, enough to melt ice cream. She had no desire to be roasted in the sun. Plus, with the intense UV radiation, it probably felt like 40 degrees. Seeing her resistant expression, Qin Muye said in a low voice, I told you it gets hot in the summer. You didn't believe me. I believe you now, for sure, Jiang Muming said, taking a homemade popsicle from the fridge. Popsicles are a lifesaver. Qin Muye's eyes twinkled with amusement. All right then, you stay here. I'll head to the docks. What for? Jiang Muming asked curiously. I had some things delivered. They should be arriving today, Qin Muye explained. Hearing this, Jiang Muming urged, then hurry up. Around 2 is the hottest time. Go and come back quickly. Qin Muye hummed in agreement, put on his hat, and headed outside. Seeing him leave, Jiang Muming turned the fan to face her, enjoying the full blast of coolness. Just as she was finishing a popsicle and an ice cream, getting ready for a nap, Qin Muye returned. Jiang Muming peeked out curiously and saw Qin Muye climbing the ladder, carrying a black net in his hand. Not only was Qin Muye there, but Lu Haoding and Lu Lianqing were there too. Standing in the doorway, Jiang Muming poked her head out. Muyang, what are you guys doing? Putting up a sunshade net. It'll be cooler in the house, Qin Muye replied in a deep voice. Sunshade net? Jiang Muming watched with curiosity as Qin Muye climbed onto the roof and draped the black net over the top. Then, the three of them got to work. The large black net stretched open, covering their house, from the roof to the yard. As the sunshade net unfurled, Jiang Muming could noticeably feel it was instantly cooler where she was standing. Even the temperature inside the house dropped, and the strong sunlight dimmed. Jiang Muming stood beneath the net in surprise. It actually blocks out the sun? Of course it works. The boss went to a lot of trouble to get this, just to keep you cool, sister-in-law, Lu Lianqing said with a smile. Looking at the man still working on the roof, Jiang Muming smiled sweetly. My man is just the best. Qin Muye, who was working, stumbled a little, almost falling from the roof. Seeing him, Lu Haoding said, Your legs are getting weak pretty fast. Qin Muye was embarrassed, and coughed lightly, pretending to be calm. Keep going. Once Qin Muye and the others had finished setting up the net, Jiang Muming finally stepped outside. Qin Muye hadn't covered the entire house with the sunshade net. Doing so would lower the light too much. He had left half of the space open, so that when the weather wasn't as hot in the mornings and evenings, wind could still blow into the house. Coming down from the ladder, Qin Muye walked to her side and put his arm around her waist. Now you don't have to hide inside all day. Jiang Muming cupped her cheeks with her hands. I just didn't want to get tanned. As she spoke, Jiang Muming moved her hands to his face. Your face looks a little darker. You didn't put on enough sunscreen. You need to wear a lot more from now on. Hearing that, Lu Haoding teased. So you were using sunscreen. I was wondering why you're not as tan this year. He even said it was because he married a fair-skinned wife, that his skin was getting fairer. Qin Muye coughed lightly, a hint of embarrassment on his face, like he'd been caught sneaking a snack. Jiang Muming giggled. That's a pretty lame excuse. But does this count as my husband subtly pushing for marriage? It does, Qin Muye agreed. So when are you going to find someone when you're so old? I've foreseen it, Jiang Muming said leisurely. Commander Lu has a high potential to die alone. In the book, Qin Muye was supposed to be with him in the nursing home. But now that Qin Muye had a wife to share a warm bed with, she wouldn't be willing to send him to a nursing home. Lu Haoding was frustrated, feeling like he was being double-teamed. With the sunshade net up, Jiang Muming sat in the shade of a tree, watching the world outside the net. Hearing about their new sunshade, the wives of the neighbors came to visit. In an instant, the once quiet courtyard became lively. Seeing this, Jiang Muming enthusiastically took out some chilled watermelon from the refrigerator to treat them. After cutting the watermelon into halves, everyone held a half, taking bites with spoons, chatting away. The atmosphere was very convivial. Commander Qin really is famous for spoiling his wife. Who else would think of this kind of thing? I've been stationed here with my man for years, and I've never seen him this considerate. That's right, Muming. We're all so envious of you. Yes, and you don't have to do any housework. Commander Qin takes care of everything. He's the best husband I've ever seen. Hearing everyone praising Qin Muye, Jiang Muming had a gentle smile on her face. I think he's pretty great too. Hey, is it true that old Wang next door's wife is having an affair with another man? I heard that too. Jiang Muming scooped out a spoonful of watermelon, listening cheerfully as the wives gossiped about the compound, who was being cheated on, whose mother-in-law was bullying their daughter-in-law. As the sun began to set, no longer beating down harshly, the earth gradually cooled. A sea breeze blew in, giving Jiang Muming a refreshing coolness. Qin Muye and Jiang Heng walked in from outside, followed by many of his comrades. Hello, sister-in-law. Everyone greeted enthusiastically. Jiang Muming looked at them, her eyes crinkling as she greeted, Everyone's here. Please sit down in the yard. We'll have a barbecue soon. I'll go prepare the meat. Muye, you go bring out the barbecue grill, Jiang Heng instructed. Qin Muye didn't reply, he just walked towards an empty room. We'll help too, sister-in-law. The soldiers volunteered, making the scene very lively. Jiang Heng glanced at Jiang Muming, who nodded in understanding, and then went inside to get some charcoal from her dimension for cover. Once the barbecue equipment was set up and the food was prepared, they started grilling. Jiang Muming, who hadn't had a barbecue in a long time, had a great appetite, eating with relish. These chicken skewers are grilled perfectly. Muye, I want another one. Jiang Muming said as she ate. Okay, Qin Muye said, his eyes full of affection. Lu Haoding, eating a meat skewer, sighed. Muye, you married a capable wife. We're all riding on your coattails. That's right. Before, we didn't know meat and vegetables could be cooked like this. Thank you, sister-in-law. Jiang Muming smiled and replied, You're welcome. You're all Muyang's brothers in arms. We're all family here. Jiang Muming knew that these people were Qin Muyang's comrades, so it was crucial to have a good relationship with them. After all, he trusted them with his life on the battlefield. Having a good relationship with them ensured Qin Muyang's safety. Qin Muye looked at her, his eyes filled with a tenderness that was only for her. As her husband, Qin Muye naturally understood her thoughts. He was even more determined to love and cherish her. Chapter 98. Love Amidst the Cold. Qin Muye and Jiang Heng. After the intense summer heat, the cool autumn days were short-lived, and winter arrived. In modern times, Jiang Muming had traveled to northeastern China in winter, and had also climbed snow-capped mountains with Jiang Heng. Therefore, She had originally thought that the island's winter cold would be something she could easily endure. But as it turned out, she had been too naive. In December, Jiang Muming was bundled up in a padded coat, lying in bed with a hot water bottle. It was only the afternoon, but Jiang Muming stubbornly refused to leave her blanket. Suddenly, the door creaked open, letting a gust of cold air in, causing Jiang Muming to scream, "Close the door quickly!" Qin Muye, wearing a thick military coat and a cotton hat, came in. Before she had finished speaking, Qin Muye had already shut the door. Seeing this, Jiang Muming let out a heavy sigh of relief. "Oh my, it's so cold." Qin Muye sat down on the edge of the bed, looking at her wrapped tightly in her blanket. His brow furrowed. "You haven't eaten all day?" Qin Muye had been busy today and hadn't come home for lunch. He went to the kitchen just now and realized there wasn't any cooking done either. Clearly, Jiang Muming hadn't gotten up. Jiang Muming shook her head. "I won't leave the blanket. It's too cold. It's a bone-chilling cold." As she spoke, Jiang Muming pulled her hand out of the blanket and placed it on Qin Muye's hand. She had meant to say her hand was cold, but when she touched his, she pulled it back as if shocked and swallowed the words. "Staying under the blanket was definitely the right decision," Jiang Muming said firmly. "Now I finally understand why you didn't want me to join you here. This is really cold." The island's cold was a damp, chilling kind of cold. The air was very humid with high moisture content. When that moisture and cold seeped into your bones, it was a piercing cold. It was a combination of the northern cold and the southern damp, truly unbearable. Plus, they didn't have down jackets or floor heating in this era, so they just had to endure it. Qin Muye rubbed his hand, waiting for it to warm up a bit, then he pulled her hand into his, speaking in a low voice. "I told you before, but you didn't believe me." "It's hard to imagine without experiencing it firsthand," Jiang Muming said, exasperated. "I kind of just want to go live somewhere warm for the winter." Hearing this, Qin Muye's heart tightened, and he said, "I've already arranged to transport a large amount of honeycomb briquettes. They're being distributed to each household today." "Honeycomb briquettes?" Jiang Muming's eyes lit up. "Yeah, that's what I've been busy with the last few days," Qin Muye explained in a deep voice. Because the living conditions in the military were relatively harsh, Qin Muye had proposed purchasing honeycomb briquettes as winter approached. But because they were expensive, an agreement had never been reached. Later, Qin Muye negotiated with the coal factory as a representative of the military. After days and nights of effort, he finally succeeded. As he spoke, the soldiers distributing honeycomb briquettes knocked on the door and gave them theirs. Qin Muye placed the honeycomb briquettes into the coal stove and lit it. As it burned, the originally bone-chilling air slowly started to warm up. "It really is quite warm," Jiang Muming said in surprise, pulling the blanket down from her head. "Yeah." Qin Muye put her hand on his cheek and rubbed it to warm her up. "Each household didn't get many briquettes, but I've already arranged it with the coal factory manager. I bought some extra to keep you warm. That way, the winter won't be too cold and you can use them when it's really cold." Seeing the dark circles under his eyes, Jiang Muming felt a pang of pain. "It must be so hard, dealing with all the military stuff and still thinking of making my winter easier." Qin Muye kissed the back of her hand. "You're here now, as your husband. I must do my best for you." Jiang Muming's eyes crinkled into a smile. The room was warming up because of the burning briquettes, and Jiang Muming was starting to feel hungry. So Qin Muye went to cook noodles, and Jiang Muming waited in the room. Soon, Qin Muye returned with a steaming bowl of noodles. After eating, Jiang Muming finally started to feel warm. Looking at her padded coat, though it provided some warmth, it was very bulky. "It wasn't nearly as warm as a down jacket," Jiang Muming said wistfully. "I really hope I can wear a down jacket next winter." Hearing this, Qin Muye was curious. "What's a down jacket?" "It's a kind of clothing that's much warmer than a padded coat," Jiang Muming explained. "And these cotton shoes aren't as warm as snow boots either." Qin Muye was surprised. Jiang Muming often said words that he didn't understand. Just as they were chatting, Jiang Heng's voice came from outside. "Jiang Muming." Hearing the voice, Jiang Muming was surprised. "Why is he here?" Qin Muye went to open the door, where Jiang Heng was standing, holding a large object. "What is that?" Jiang Muming asked curiously. Jiang Heng placed the object on the ground, put his hands on his hips and said proudly, "This is my latest invention for heating. A small sun?" Hearing that, Jiang Muming's eyes lit up. "Is that the legendary small sun heater?" "That's right. I finally made it after more than a week. I'm a true inventor, I tell you," Jiang Heng said proudly. Jiang Muming had never used a small sun heater, but she'd heard about them. Let's try it, Jiang Muming said excitedly. Jiang Hong carried the small sun heater to a socket and plugged it in. After turning it on, a light suddenly appeared in the room. The area the heater was pointed at instantly became warmer. Qin Muye watched the object in astonishment. This thing is so amazing. Yes, and it's warm, just as warm as the honeycomb briquettes, Jiang Muming said, equally surprised. Jiang Hong, you're a genius. You actually made this. Hearing Jiang Muming's praise, Jiang Hong almost wagged his tail with delight. Of course. I just happened to see the instructions for how to make a small sun heater. I spent a lot of time, but I finally made one. Am I not awesome? Jiang Muming nodded repeatedly, giving him a thumbs up. You're amazing. I'm so lucky to have you, bro. Finally hearing Jiang Muming call him bro, Jiang Heng's delighted face was like that of a fox wagging his tail. He lifted his head haughtily, pointing at his nose. Of course. It's your good fortune that I came along with you, to the military. Yes, 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 and I'll gladly accept this small sun heater, Jiang Muming said cheerfully. It's yours, Jiang Hong said generously. Qin Muye watched Jiang Hong easily solve the problem and felt a pang of jealousy. It seemed like he was being outdone by his brother-in-law. Seeing his upset, Jiang Muming held Jiang Heng's hand and Qin Muye's hand. Thank you both. With my loved one and my family by my side, I must be the happiest person in the world. Qin Muye's eyes softened. So what if he was outdone? Jiang Muming's happiness was more important. Chapter 99. Re-encounter, Gu Monli without the female lead halo. With the help of the small sun heater, the winter was finally bearable. Because the small sun heater's light could darken the skin with prolonged exposure, Jiang Muming applied sunscreen to avoid getting tanned. Hearing that Jiang Muming's house had a small sun heater and that it was very warm, some military families would bring some vegetables and fruits to visit Jiang Muming, hoping to chat and warm themselves by the fire. Seeing how useful the small sun heater was, some military wives wanted to ask Jiang Hong to make one for them. Not wanting Jiang Hong to go to so much trouble, Jiang Muming told the wives that the materials for making the small sun heater cost over 100 yuan. Hearing this, the wives quickly gave up. One day, Jiang Hong came to Jiang Muming's home for a meal. Jiang Hong, does the small sun heater have to be plugged in? Qin Muye asked in a low voice. Yeah, why do you ask? Jiang Hong asked curiously. Qin Muye didn't hide anything and told the truth. The weather has been getting colder lately. Our soldiers are standing in the cold wind every day, and many of them have gotten sick. So I was wondering if there was any way to keep them warm. As soldiers, no matter how bad the weather, or how low the temperature, even below -10 degrees Celsius, they had to stand firmly at their posts. This was a severe test for their bodies. So Qin Muye wanted to see if there was a way to make a small sun heater that didn't need to be plugged in and could keep the soldiers warm. Hearing his words, Jiang Muming casually said, there isn't a small sun heater like that, but what about a hand warmer? Hearing this, Jiang Heng's eyes lit up. That's right, we can use hand warmers. Hand warmers stick to the body and can keep it warm. How did I not think of that? Jiang Muming, you're pretty sharp. Jiang Muming rolled her eyes. Is it so hard to admit I'm smart? Yes, praising you. I'm afraid your tail will break through the sky, Jiang Hong replied calmly. Jiang Muming thought about hitting him again. But the materials for making hand warmers need a lot of activated carbon and iron powder, and those two things cost a lot of money. Moreover, to make enough for so many soldiers, it will take a lot of effort and energy. You can't expect Jiang Hong to do it for free, right? Although the two often bickered, Jiang Muming valued Jiang Heng's interests. Qin Muye nodded. If we can make hand warmers that can keep the soldiers warm, I'll make a request with the military commander to purchase them from Jiang Hong. Hearing this, Jiang Heng's eyes lit up. Of course, I'll take that deal. His dimension had unlocked a mine, an iron ore was a beginner resource. They had mined a lot, and were wondering what to do with it. If they could make money and help the soldiers, Jiang Hong was more than happy to. Then make some samples for me first. I'll take them to the commander and make the request, Qin Muye said truthfully. Jiang Hong snapped his fingers. No problem. Jiang Hong was also a man of action. That very day he made 2 hand warmers for Qin Muye. Qin Muye took them to the troops. Commander Gu Changzheng was very surprised after using them and immediately decided to buy them in bulk, so the soldiers could withstand the cold. After discussions, Jiang Hong, sticking to his principles of charity, sold the hand warmers to the troops at 2 mao each. Considering the current price of iron and activated carbon, 2 mao each wasn't expensive. To take the iron ore from the dimension and crush it into iron powder without suspicion, Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung left the island together to process the ore. Leaving the island, Jiang Muming started throwing up again. Jiang Hung looked at her and teased, "Tisk, TSK, so much for being from Jiangsu and Zhejiang." Jiang Muming wiped her mouth and said weakly, "Jiangsu and Zhejiang are not all by the sea. You better say less of these sarcastic remarks, or when I feel better, I'll kick you to death." "Got it. Good thing you got married right after transmigrating. Otherwise, who would want to marry a fierce woman like you?" Jiang Hung. Half an hour later, the two of them took out 100 gene of iron ore from their dimension and took it to be crushed into iron powder. While waiting, Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung thought of getting something to eat. On their way, they passed by a clinic and unexpectedly encountered Gu Monli, who had just been released from prison. Seeing her wearing a floral padded coat and struggling to carry things, Jiang Muming was clearly surprised. In 6 months, Gu Monli had aged a lot, with deep, sunken eye sockets. Gu Monli didn't expect to run into her either. She was stunned for a couple of seconds, a look of panic flashing in her eyes. "Miss Jiang, it's been a long time." "It has been a long time. Are you working at the clinic?" Jiang Muming asked in surprise. "Yes, I'm a doctor here," Gu Monli said with a forced smile, pointing to the rundown clinic next door. It turned out that after being released from prison, the Gu family had kicked her out. Knowing she could not live on the island, she had come here. Because of her prison record, Gu Monli couldn't work in any military hospital and had ended up working at this old, broken-down clinic, earning a little money to support herself. "Dr. Gu, do you regret it?" Jiang Muming asked casually. Gu Monli's body stiffened, her eyes showing a dim, somber expression. "This is my just reward," Gu Monli said in a hoarse voice. Because of one wrong step, she had ended up in this miserable, friendless state. But there are no regrets in this world. "I have to get back to work," Gu Monli said, hurrying towards the vehicle in the distance and starting to unload boxes of medical supplies. Seeing her struggling to carry the goods while many people were inside the clinic not helping, Jiang Muming said calmly, "Looks like she's lost her female lead halo." Jiang Hung crossed his arms over his chest. "Seems so. The army was the place where she could have fulfilled her ambition, but now that she has left it, she's separated from the plot, so her life is ordinary." Jiang Hung chuckled. "Who told her to fall for the wrong person and try to harm others secretly? So, it's her own fault." "Yes, it's her own fault. Let's go," Jiang Muming said with a calm expression. She didn't have any sympathy for Gu Monli. With the iron ore successfully processed into iron powder and the remaining materials prepared, Jiang Hung and Jiang Muming returned to the island with the supplies. The cold wind kept blowing, but Jiang Muming braved the cold wind and stood on the deck. Jiang Hung, wearing gloves, rubbed his hands as he walked over to her. "Jiang Muming, are you stupid? You're so afraid of the cold. Why don't you go back to the cabin?" Her hair was being blown by the sea wind, and even with a hat, the wind was making Jiang Muming's head hurt. "Jiang Hung, it's really cold here. It feels like we're in a situation similar to before the avalanche," Jiang Muming said truthfully. Jiang Hung stood there, looking at the sea. "It does feel a bit similar, a bone-chilling cold. But it's not the same either. Back then, we had better equipment. It wasn't as cold as it is now. But don't be a jinx, we had an avalanche in our last lives, and I don't want to encounter a shipwreck in this one." Jiang Muming chuckled. "We're not that unlucky. Who knows, maybe after death we'll be able to start another life again." "You think it's an infinite loop?" Jiang Hung tapped her on the head. Jiang Muming looked at the sea. "This reincarnation is pretty good. I never thought I could be so happy in this life. I have a husband who loves me, I can spend freely, and earn a lot of money. I'm also one step closer to becoming a dragon king. My goal in the next 3 years is to make money and start a company, and become #1 on the rich list," Jiang Hung said excitedly. Jiang Muming glanced sideways at him, and said sincerely, "Jiang Hung, thank you for transmigrating with me, and making me feel like I'm not alone." Jiang Hung was stunned for a second, before putting his hand on her shoulder. "Bad karma is still karma. I wanted to be your dad, but I ended up as your brother. Whatever it is, we're still family." Jiang Muming smiled. "Yes, we're family." The two stood on the deck, gazing into the distance and dreaming of the future. Chapter 100. So glad I met you. So glad you could love me. Finale. Time flies and 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Inside a bustling factory on the island, the workers were working in an orderly manner. A woman with a graceful figure and delicate features was talking to the workers. Sunlight fell on her face, making her seem radiant. This woman was none other than Jiang Muming, one of the factory's owners. After 2 years of operation, the small processing workshop had become the largest seafood processing factory on the island. With the help of their dimension, the two of them were able to make a lot of money. That money became their principal to open up the factory and stores. Money made everything easier. With that money, Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung opened a factory on the island. They also opened a seafood market in the coastal city of Ji Province, which was closest to the island. They had also bought 2 enormous ships, which were not only used for fishing every day, but also as cargo ships. Every day, they bought seafood from the fishermen and sorted it. Some of it was sent to the processing factory and the other to the seafood market. Because of the high quality of their seafood and prices lower than that of other individual vendors, the seafood market became well known in Ji Province within 2 years, becoming the most famous seafood market in the region. Vegetable vendors and individual seafood merchants from nearby cities came to the market to stock up on supplies. Slowly, the market became the place where seafood had to be sourced. Since Jiang Muming got seasick, Jiang Hung was responsible for external operations, while Jiang Muming was in charge of the processing factory. The two of them collaborated to make their business more and more successful. Muming. A deep, familiar voice came from behind her. Jiang Muming lifted her head and saw the man walking towards her. Her eyes sparkled with laughter. Done with work? Jiang Muming looked at him with a smile. Qin Muye walked to her side. The already steady man had become even more composed after 2 years of experience. He had now become a full commander from a deputy commander and was the most prestigious military officer in the army. After giving out work instructions, Jiang Muming took his arm. Let's go eat. Okay, Qin Muye responded in a deep voice. I don't have to go to the army this afternoon. I can spend some time with you. Commander Qin finally has time to rest, Jiang Muming said coquettishly. Qin Muye put his arm around her waist, leaned down, and said in a hoarse voice next to her ear, I'm sorry. I've been too busy these past few days and have neglected you. I'll make dinner tonight as compensation. The troops had been having some issues these past few days that Qin Muye needed to deal with urgently. Seeing him like this, Jiang Muming's eyes flashed with a smile. I know. I wasn't really blaming you. I know you are busy and have a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders. I understand. My wife is the best, Qin Muye said softly as he held her. Jiang Muming was a little embarrassed, seeing everyone around them staring. Everyone's watching us. Jiang Muming tried to push him away, but the man was like a mountain and refused to let go. It's okay. Let them look. It's not illegal to hug my wife, Qin Muye said calmly. Jiang Muming's heart beat fast as she looked up at him. Looking at his face, she slowly placed her cheek on his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. Leaving the factory, the two went to a restaurant. After having their fill, Jiang Muming held Qin Muye's hand and headed to the beach in a cheerful mood. Time really does fly. Autumn is almost over, and winter will come again. Jiang Muming stood on the beach, watching the waves lapping the sand and reefs. Qin Muye stood next to her. Yeah, the time I spend with you really does fly by. Unknowingly, they had already been married for more than 2 years. Right? I'm getting prettier. Are you worried I'll run away? Jiang Muming jumped in front of him, hooked her neck with her arm, her face blooming with a smile. Qin Muye put his arms around her slender waist and replied in a low voice, Yeah, I'm worried that you'll see a better man and won't want me. Sometimes, I really want to hide you away in our house and have you see no one but me. Then why don't you do it? Jiang Muming raised an eyebrow. You belong in a wider world. You shouldn't be confined to a small house, Qin Muye said, looking at her seriously. You are an eagle. You belong to the sky. Hearing his words, Jiang Muming reached out and pulled his head down, resting her nose on his. She said softly, You are my sky. Jiang Muming often felt lucky that the man she had met was Qin Muye. Qin Muye was so good to her, caring for her in every aspect of her life. As long as he was home, she was spoiled like a little princess. Qin Muye only had 10 yuan of pocket money a month, but he always spent it on her, occasionally buying her small surprises and creating small romantic moments. It was because of his support that Jiang Muming was able to strive for success with Jiang Hung. Whenever someone would say a woman shouldn't be in the public eye, or that she was often in the company of men, Qin Muye trusted her unconditionally. He said, I trust my wife's character. Marrying me won't be a shackle for her. Hearing this, Qin Muye's heart throbbed violently. He opened his mouth and kissed her soft lips. Jiang Muming's eyelashes fluttered as she opened her lips and responded to his deep affection. The long kiss finally ended. Jiang Muming's lips were swollen and red. She leaned softly into his arms. Qin Muye hugged her, and with his thumb gently caressed her swollen lips, saying awkwardly, "Does it hurt? I got a bit carried away there." Jiang Muming's cheeks were flushed. "Aren't you ashamed? This is the beach. You're not worried someone will report you for not paying attention to your image." Qin Muye chuckled. "When I'm kissing you, I don't have time to think about all that." Jiang Muming protested by hitting his chest with her fist, and Qin Muye let her small fists fall. After a while, Jiang Muming held out her hand to him. "My hand hurts from hitting you." Qin Muye gently massaged her palm, helping to rub it. "Muming, thank you for giving me a home. I'm so glad that I met you in this vast world, and I'm so grateful that you can love me," Qin Muye confessed in a hoarse voice. Jiang Muming looked up at the man in front of her. Her heart was stirred. "So our fate is very deep," Jiang Muming said with a chuckle. Qin Muye gazed at her tenderly. "I love you." He wasn't someone who often put his love into words. He said it less often, but he would always show it through his actions. Jiang Muming smiled sweetly. "I love you too." Qin Muye was happy, and a smile appeared on his usually stern face. Seeing him like this, Jiang Muming said playfully, "I have something to share with you." "What is it?" Qin Muye looked at her in confusion. Jiang Muming stood on her tiptoes, leaned in next to his ear, and whispered softly, "You're going to be a father." Qin Muye's eyes widened in disbelief. "Pregnant?" Jiang Muming said, her eyes crinkling. But what surprised her was that upon learning he was going to be a father, Qin Muye didn't seem happy. Instead, he became serious. "Have you been to the hospital for a checkup? Did the doctor say your body is fit for pregnancy? Will there be any danger with childbirth?" And, hearing the series of questions, Jiang Muming looked at him in surprise. "Why are you so worried?" Taking her hand, Qin Muye said seriously, "I heard that it's dangerous for young women to give birth. I can be without a child, but I can't be without you. So if there's danger, we won't have any." Jiang Muming was stunned as she looked at him, feeling his sincerity. Her heart was warmed. In Qin Muye's heart, she was more important than his own offspring. She finally understood why he had been so consistent with using contraception and why he didn't want children. It was because of this. "I went to the hospital for a checkup, and my body is healthy. There's no problem with childbirth. And we've been married for 2 years. I'm not that young anymore. It's time to have one," Jiang Muming said with a gentle smile. Hearing her say that, Qin Muye's heart finally relaxed, and he happily hugged her. "We have a baby." Leaning in his arms, Jiang Muming smiled sweetly. "Yes, we have a baby. But I've been consistent with contraception. How did this happen?" Qin Muye asked, puzzled. "Have you forgotten? The condom broke that day," Jiang Muming said reproachfully. Qin Muye finally remembered that incident and said very matter-of-factly, "We'll have to buy better quality ones in the future." Was he sure it wasn't because he was using them too frequently? The next moment, Jiang Muming's body was lifted into the air. She saw that the man was carrying her. "What are you doing? Put me down." "No, you're pregnant. I can't let you get tired. I'll carry you," Qin Muye said with a cheerful laugh. "Then it's tiring for me to eat. I'll feed you. I don't want to wash my hair." "I'll do it." Their conversation faded into the distance, as the sunlight shone on the two of them, gradually lengthening their shadows. Chapter 101. Extra 01. Pregnancy Reactions, Qin Muye worries. A girl is like a flower. If carefully tended, she'll become more delicate and beautiful. Jiang Muming was just like that. After finding out that Jiang Muming was pregnant, Jiang Hong wouldn't let her handle any of the factory work. He said that he wasn't dead, so there was no need for Jiang Muming, a pregnant woman, to worry about it. Therefore, Jiang Hong took on all the business matters, big and small. Of course, as the business expanded, Jiang Hong also found a few capable helpers to help him manage it. As for Qin Muye, other than military matters, he spent all of his time by Jiang Muming's side. He was like a little follower. Wherever Jiang Muming went, he went with her. And whenever Jiang Muming wanted to do something, he would do it for her. So much so, that every time the families in the compound saw Jiang Muming, they would offer words of envy. Eventually, everyone was too tired of saying how envious they were. Unbeknownst to them, Jiang Muming was almost 3 months pregnant. As the weather got hotter, Jiang Muming lost her appetite and didn't like eating, which caused Qin Muye great worry. At lunchtime, Qin Muye had prepared a table full of food. He had gone to great effort to make everything spicy, which was Jiang Muming's favorite. Spicy shrimp, spicy crab, spicy tofu, spicy and sour shredded potatoes. The only light dish was tomato soup. Qin Muye helped Jiang Muming to the table, But looking at the dishes that she usually loved, Jiang Muming had no appetite for them. Forget it. I'd rather not eat, Jiang Muming said softly. Looking at her thin appearance, Qin Muye's brow furrowed. You're not eating again? Your face has gotten even smaller these past few days. It's almost as small as a little girl's. It's not that small, Jiang Muming said coquettishly, covering her chest, but I really don't have an appetite these days. Maybe it's the hot weather. My mouth feels tasteless, and I have no desire to eat anything. Qin Muye's face was full of worry. Then what do we do? If you don't eat every day, your body won't be able to take it. Seeing how worried he was, Jiang Muming comforted him. Don't worry too much. I should feel better in a few days. The weather suddenly turned hot, making people a bit irritated and less interested in food. But don't worry too much. I'm going to take a nap. Maybe when I wake up, I'll have an appetite, Jiang Muming said with a smile. Then she walked toward the room. Qin Muye watched her back. It was a lie to say he wasn't worried. But he wasn't the one who was pregnant, and he had no way to share her discomfort. Qin Muye ate some of the dishes. He carefully put away the rest, thinking that Jiang Muming could eat them when she was hungry. Leaving the house, Qin Muye didn't go straight to the troops, but instead went to the home of Deng Cuiping, the head of the Women's Association. Seeing him come, Deng Cuiping was surprised. Commander Qin, what brings you here? Standing in front of her, Qin Muye was a little embarrassed. Sister-in-law, I'd like to ask, when pregnant, if you have a bad appetite and don't want to eat, is there anything that works? Deng Cuiping was the head of the Women's Association. She had a lot of knowledge, plus she had given birth to 2 children, so Qin Muye thought she would have more experience. Hearing this, Deng Cuiping immediately understood. Is Muming's morning sickness bad? She hasn't been throwing up or anything like that. She just has no appetite. These past 2 days she's barely been eating, and she says it's because of the hot weather, Qin Muye explained. Pregnancy is hard work to begin with, plus the hot weather makes people more irritable. It's natural to have a poor appetite. If you want advice, how about getting her some sour fruit to stimulate her appetite? Hearing this, Qin Muye quickly asked, what kind of sour fruit? I remember there is a plum tree on the mountain behind our residential compound. The plums should have ripened by now. Plums can stimulate the appetite. Just pick some for Muming to nibble on. It might help. Hearing this, Qin Muye thanked her gratefully. Thank you, sister-in-law. Then he immediately turned to leave. But I don't remember exactly where it is. It might take you some time to find it. It's okay, Qin Muye said before striding out. Watching his hurried appearance, Deng Cuiping said with envy, he really treats his wife like the apple of his eye. Chapter 102. Extra 02. Regret in the Heart. That evening, Jiang Muming sat in the yard, watching the sun getting ready to set. Qin Muye still wasn't back. That's strange. Why isn't he back yet? Did something hold him up at the military? Jiang Muming murmured worriedly to herself. As she waited impatiently, Qin Muye finally returned. But right now he looked a little disheveled. Jiang Muming stood up and walked forward in surprise, brushing the leaves off his head. What happened? Did you roll around in the grass? You're covered in leaves and grass. Qin Muye grinned, his eyes full of delight as he held up a bag. Muming, these are plums that I just picked. I'll wash some for you to eat and see if your appetite gets any better. Jiang Muming looked at him in shock. It's not plum season yet. Did you actually go up the mountain to pick them yourself? Qin Muye didn't deny it. Jiang Muming immediately understood. He knew she didn't have an appetite, so he wanted to do something. You idiot, that plum tree must be tall. It's so dangerous to climb it. If something had happened, it wouldn't be worth it. Qin Muye took her hand. It wouldn't. If it can help improve your appetite, then it would be worth it. Jiang Muming couldn't help but smile. I'll go wash some, Qin Muye said before immediately walking to the kitchen. In a little while, Qin Muye washed a plate of plums and brought them to her. Nibble on them when you're bored. If they work, I'll go pick some more another day. Jiang Muming picked up a plum and put it in her mouth. She took a small bite and a sour taste stimulated her taste buds. It's so sour, Jiang Muming said, chewing. But they actually seem to be working. Seeing that it worked, Qin Muye's face lit up with delight. Then eat some more. Okay, Jiang Muming said, eating a plum. Perhaps she was moved by his kindness, or perhaps the plums were working. Jiang Muming suddenly felt like she had an appetite. Let's go eat, Jiang Muming said with a smile, taking his arm. Be careful, Qin Muye said, supporting her as carefully as if she was a precious gem. He helped her slowly walk to the room. Jiang Muming ate the plums as she ate the spicy food. With both methods, she surprisingly ate quite a bit. After dinner, Jiang Muming strolled around the yard as usual. Qin Muye finished the housework and came to her side, putting his arm around her waist. What are you looking at? You look so lost in thought. I was looking at the stars. There are so many stars tonight, Jiang Muming said, looking up at the starry sky. Qin Muye followed her gaze and saw the many stars in the night sky. There are quite a few, Qin Muye said, looking at her profile. Are you homesick? Jiang Muming nodded lightly. I am homesick. If you miss home, we can go back home for the new year, Qin Muye said comfortingly. Hearing his words, Jiang Muming smiled gently. Okay. In these past 2 years, although she hadn't seen her original parents often, she had kept in touch with them through phone calls and letters, and also sent them money regularly. Although they weren't her or Jiang Heng's biological parents, the two of them treated them as if they were real family. But in her heart, there were still regrets. She and Jiang Heng were both only children, and their deaths in the avalanche had been a huge blow to their parents. Thinking of the reports she had seen about parents who had lost their only child, Jiang Muming felt guilty. Just then, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Jiang Muming quickly put her hands together and prayed in her heart. Please, bless my parents and keep them healthy. I hope that they won't be sad because of my departure. I hope that I will see you again. After spending a long time in the yard, Jiang Muming went back to her room. She didn't like watching TV, so she laid on the bed ready to sleep. It was a bit hot at night, so Qin Muye turned the fan to its highest setting and had Jiang Muming sleep on the outer side so the cool air wouldn't be blocked by him. Jiang Muming closed her eyes and quickly fell asleep. But for some unknown reason, when she fell asleep, she only felt her body become light, and then it was like a gust of wind, floating far away. Chapter 103, Extra 03, Relief. Just as Jiang Muming was feeling a bit nervous, she suddenly saw that she had arrived at a familiar place. Looking at the familiar style of decoration, Jiang Muming was stunned. Isn't this my house? The spacious and bright house had an overall European style, and a familiar crystal chandelier sparkled under the lights. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared before her. Jiang Muming's eyes instantly teared up. Mom! The woman looked very similar to Jiang Muming. Although she was already in her 40s, she looked like she was in her 30s. Honey, hurry up. Anwan is about to arrive, Jiang Mama urged. Then, a middle-aged man carried out the cleaned vegetables and meat. It's all ready. Dad. Looking at them, Jiang Muming felt as if it were another lifetime. Just then, the doorbell rang. Jiang Mama hurried to open the door and saw 2 figures enter the house. It was Jiang Heng's parents. Hurry and come inside, Jiang Mama said with a smile. I bought a lot of barbecue sauces, Jiang Heng's mother said, beaming with smiles. I bought a lot too, Jiang Mama said, taking Jiang Heng's mother's hand affectionately. Jiang Muming watched them sit at the table. So, they were having a barbecue tonight. I was just saying. Jiang Muming stood there quietly, listening to them chatting, tears twinkling in her eyes. From their conversations, Jiang Muming learned that after she and Jiang Heng had passed away, their parents had supported each other and kept each other warm. Because they had lost their children, they didn't want to work hard anymore. So they spent half the year working and half the year traveling. The two families had always had a good relationship. Now, they had become a true family. Looking at the smiles on their faces, Jiang Muming's eyes welled up with tears. Seeing that they were okay, Jiang Muming finally felt relieved. Mom, Dad, Uncle and Auntie, you must live happily. Jiang Heng and I will also be okay, Jiang Muming said softly, tears streaming down her face. Just as she was watching her parents happily chatting and talking about interesting things, a voice suddenly came from her ear. Muming, Muming? Jiang Muming slowly opened her eyes and saw Qin Muye looking at her with concern. Seeing her wake up, Qin Muye finally breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the tears from her face. Did you have a nightmare? It turned out that Jiang Muming had been crying in her sleep, which had scared Qin Muye. Jiang Muming shook her head. It wasn't a nightmare. I finally saw the family I missed the most. Did you dream about your parents? Jiang Muming nodded, tears twinkling in her eyes. Yeah, I dreamt that my parents were okay, that they were living well. Even though I'm not by their sides, they're living their lives to the fullest. Looking at the emotion in her eyes, Qin Muye didn't know why, but he felt that the parents Jiang Muming spoke of were not Jiang Guoqiao and his wife. Qin Muye hugged her and said gently, They will be. Your parents must love you very much, so they will live their lives well and not let you worry. Jiang Muming nodded heavily and looked past him, out the window. Knowing that her parents were safe and happy, and hadn't lost hope in life because of her departure, Jiang Muming could finally relax. Qin Muye hugged her and gently patted her back like he was coaxing a child. With the boulder in her heart gone, a smile returned to Jiang Muming's face. As the months passed, Jiang Muming took it easy and awaited the birth of her child. As her due date approached, Jiang Muming's belly grew bigger, but her limbs were still slender. One afternoon, Jiang Muming was taking a nap when she suddenly felt a strange pain in her sleep. The pain woke her up. Jiang Muming opened her eyes, held her pregnant belly, and furrowed her brow. Why is it suddenly so painful? Could it be that I'm about to give birth? Jiang Muming's face showed clear worry. She carefully sat up. As she got ready to stand, she clearly felt something falling down. Worried that she was bleeding, Jiang Muming supported her waist and walked toward the toilet. Her heart dropped when she saw red liquid in her underwear. Leaving the toilet, Jiang Muming immediately called out, "Jiang Heng, bro." Jiang Heng, who was chatting outside the door, poked his head in. "What's wrong?" Jiang Muming's voice was clearly panicked. "I think I'm about to give birth." Hearing this, Jiang Heng, who was eating melon seeds, quickly dropped them and ran to her. "Don't move." Chapter 104, Extra 04. The process was hard, but Qin Muye was worth it. Jiang Heng carried Jiang Muming and ran as fast as he could, taking her to the military hospital in record time. Jiang Muming could feel a constant heaviness and pressure in her abdomen. She remembered the doctor saying that those were contractions. When they reached the hospital, Jiang Heng immediately carried Jiang Muming to the emergency room and said anxiously, "Doctor, my sister's in labor. She has a bad stomachache." Hearing this, the doctor immediately got up. "Comrade, please go outside. We need to check her condition." Although Jiang Heng was worried, he still obeyed and went outside. The doctor gave Jiang Muming an internal exam and said, "Her cervix is dilated to 4 centimeters. Quickly send her for more tests." Jiang Muming lay on the bed, her beautiful face etched with anxiety. Over these past few months, Jiang Muming had read many books about childbirth. But reading about it was one thing. Actually going through labor was a whole other matter. "Comrade, push harder," a nurse said from the side. "Keep pushing. Try to push outwards like you're using the bathroom." Jiang Muming listened to the doctor's words and pushed with all her might. As time went by, Jiang Muming only felt that the pain in her abdomen was constantly intensifying. "Ah, it hurts." Jiang Muming cried out in pain. "Her cervix has dilated to 10 centimeters. Keep pushing," the nurse urged. Jiang Muming's mind was buzzing, and as the pain intensified, cold sweat streamed down her face. "Ah!" Outside the delivery room, Jiang Heng paced back and forth anxiously. Hearing Jiang Muming's cries of pain, he was beside himself with worry. Why isn't it over yet? That girl Jiang Muming is the most afraid of pain. Listening to her screaming like that, she might not survive. Just as he was feeling worried, hurried footsteps approached, along with Qin Muyang's anxious voice. "How's Muming?" "She's still in there screaming." "I don't know what's happening," Jiang Heng said worriedly. It turned out that when Jiang Heng took Jiang Muming to the hospital, he had asked a neighbor to tell Qin Muyang as quickly as possible. Hearing this, Qin Muyang wanted to knock on the door, but he was afraid that he would disrupt Jiang Muming. "Ah, Qin Muyang." Hearing the voice, Qin Muyang's brow was etched with worry. Did something happen? Just then, the door to the delivery room was pushed open, and a nurse came out. Qin Muyang asked anxiously, "How is my wife?" "The mother is still trying her best, but the child is large, so delivery will be difficult," the nurse said truthfully. Hearing this, Jiang Heng quickly said, "If it's difficult to give birth naturally, then go for a C-section. I don't care whether it's good for the child or not, just make sure it's good for Jiang Muming." In his opinion, the so-called child was nowhere near as important as Jiang Muming. Yes, a C-section, Qin Muyang agreed. Although he didn't know the specifics of a C-section, Jiang Muming had mentioned it before. He trusted that Jiang Heng wouldn't harm her. A C-section is not that easy. You need specific indicators to qualify for it. "The mother is still trying," the nurse said truthfully. Hearing Jiang Muming's cries of pain, it felt like a million ants were crawling in Qin Muyang's heart. "Can I accompany my wife? She's in so much pain. I'm worried." The delivery room is full of the smell of blood. "Comrade, just wait outside." "It's okay," Qin Muyang said seriously. "My wife must be very afraid right now. I want to be by her side." Seeing Qin Muyang's persistence, the nurse went to the delivery room to ask about the situation. 10 minutes later, Qin Muyang was allowed to go in. When he saw Jiang Muming again, Qin Muyang's heart ached. Jiang Muming's forehead veins were popping. Her hair and clothes were completely soaked, as if she had just been pulled out of the water. Muming. Qin Muyang held her hand tightly. Hearing his familiar voice, Jiang Muming, who was on the verge of collapse, said, Qin Muyang, I'll never give birth again. No, we won't. We won't have any more, Qin Muyang said with a distressed heart. You still have to give birth now. You must hurry and push, the doctor urged. Jiang Muming took a deep breath and continued to push with all her might. Ah! It hurts so much. Qin Muyang's eyes were red. He held her hand tightly, continuously cheering her on. Seeing that she was almost out of strength, Qin Muyang suddenly remembered something. He took out the chocolate from his pocket and put it in her mouth. Half a month ago, Jiang Muming had casually mentioned that if she didn't have the strength during labor, she could eat chocolate. So from that day on, he had been carrying a few chocolates with him, just in case. Jiang Muming chewed on the chocolate, surprised that Qin Muyang had taken her simple words to heart. After eating the chocolate, Jiang Muming continued to push. As Jiang Muming used all her strength and pushed with all her might, a cry rang out in the delivery room. Wah! Hearing the cry, Jiang Muming and Qin Muyang breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally over. Congratulations, it's a boy, the nurse said with a smile. Qin Muyang took her hand, their fingers intertwining. Muming, our child is born. Jiang Muming nodded gently. Qin Muyang leaned down and kissed her forehead. Muming, thank you for giving me a complete family. Jiang Muming's eyes twinkled with a smile. Silly. Although the pregnancy and childbirth process had been very difficult, Qin Muyang was worth it. Chapter 105. Extra 05. Bickering, loving each other. Back in the ward, Jiang Muming lay softly on the bed. Because giving birth had drained too much of her energy, Jiang Muming was completely worn out. In the ward, there was only Jiang Muming and Jiang Hong, and the newborn baby. Because Qin Muyang was worried that Jiang Muming would be hungry, he went home to make some soup to nourish her body. Because she had had a natural birth, there were no major dietary restrictions, so she could be nourished a little. Jiang Hong held the baby, looking at his wrinkled face, and said seriously, Jiang Muming, this little baby is a bit ugly. Did they give us the wrong baby? I remember you being very beautiful when you were young, like a little ball of powder. Although he didn't want to admit it, Jiang Muming had been beautiful since she was a child. He couldn't even remember how many love letters he had torn up for her, and all those chocolates he had eaten that made him fat. Jiang Muming said lazily, that's right. The books all say that babies aren't fully developed when they're born, so they're a little wrinkly and their complexions aren't very good. They'll get better as they grow up. Hearing her words, Jiang Hong felt relieved. He didn't want to watch Jiang Muming raise someone else's child. Holding the baby, Jiang Hong gently rocked him. I didn't think I'd become an uncle. I have to teach him well. This child can't be like you, so deserving of a beating. You're the one who deserves a beating, Jiang Muming said, her almond eyes wide. Jiang Hong lifted his head and said smugly, even if I let you beat me, you wouldn't have the strength. You just gave birth to a baby. You're just a little useless thing right now. Jiang Muming's mouth twitched. She was so angry. Little useless thing, you just lie there nicely. I'll be at the hospital for these few days. Qin Muyang is so busy. You can't be alone in the ward, that would be too pathetic, Jiang Hong said with a smile. Hearing his words, Jiang Muming felt a flutter of emotions. Over these years, her relationship with Jiang Hong had grown deeper. Although they had no blood ties in their real lives, their bond was even better than that of a family. Like this time, because she was close to her due date, and worried that Qin Muyang wouldn't be home when she went into labor, leaving her helpless, he had moved into the guest room in their house. It was thanks to this that Jiang Hong had been able to take her to the hospital immediately after her contractions had started. I know, Jiang Muming said truthfully. Seeing that she didn't object, Jiang Hong raised his eyebrows. Good girl. Listen to your brother, and you'll be a good sister. TSK, your big brother is so outstanding. In the future, I'll be the most amazing uncle in the world. Looking at his smug expression, Jiang Muming couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, a tender cry rang out. Jiang Hong looked at the little guy in his arms. Are you hungry? Uncle will make you some milk. Saying this, Jiang Hong took out the milk powder he had bought in advance and put the baby down to make the milk. Qin Muyang came into the ward carrying a thermos and went straight to the bed. Are you hungry? Qin Muyang asked softly. Jiang Muming nodded pitifully. Yes, I'm hungry. Hearing this, Qin Muyang methodically opened the thermos and took out the food. Eat this first, then we'll have the nutritious soup. I know you don't like chicken soup, so I made pigeon soup, Qin Muye said in a low voice. Okay. Qin Muye held the bowl with one hand and used a spoon to feed Jiang Muming. After that, he fed her some vegetables. Looking at the time, Jiang Muming asked curiously, "You don't have to go to the troops today?" "I took 7 days off to be with you," Qin Muye explained. "There are no elders at home to help, but I can't let you suffer because of that. I'll take good care of you." "Don't forget about me," Jiang Hung said, looking up as he fed the baby the bottle. "I'm your elder." Jiang Muming covered her face with her hand. "You're the same generation." "No, the older brother is like a father," Jiang Hung said with great conviction. Thinking of his wish when they encountered the avalanche, Jiang Muming's eyebrows twitched. "You really want to be a father?" "That's right," Jiang Hung said proudly. "Shameless. People need face and trees need bark. If people don't have shame, they'll be invincible," Jiang Hung said confidently. Jiang Muming realized for the first time that this saying could be used in this way. Sunlight streamed through the window and shone into the ward. Jiang Muming and Jiang Hung bickered, while Qin Muye looked at them, a fond expression on his face. Chapter 106, Extra 06, Mommy, Mudfish. They say that watching a child grow up makes you realize how fast time flies. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Muming and Qin Muye's child was almost 2 years old. Because the little guy looked clumsy when he was born, Jiang Muming gave him the nickname, Rue Rue. She hoped that the more Rue Rue was called, the more intelligent he would become. Jiang Muming was holding a cute jumpsuit that had just been delivered from the tailor shop and thinking of letting Rue Rue try it on. The clothing business that she had started before was now booming. The styles of clothing she designed were very popular. Jiang Muming had specially applied for a brand for her clothing called Ziyin in order to grow the business. The brand focused on women's wear, with children's and men's wear as accessories, and they were sold far and wide to other provinces and cities. But when she reached the yard, Jiang Muming's forehead began to throb. With her hands on her hips, Jiang Muming shouted loudly, "Qin Jiangyin." Hearing someone call his full name, the little guy who was kneeling down and digging in a pile of dirt raised his head. The little guy, who was a spitting image of a miniature Qin Muye, showed his pearly white teeth. The mud on his face formed a sharp contrast. "Mommy, Mudfish." Rue Rue's eyes sparkled with a dazzling light. Looking at the dirty little guy, Jiang Muming was furious. "This is the second time you've had a bath today." "The second time?" Rue Rue was very naughty and was interested in everything. He wasn't afraid of getting dirty. He would roll around in the mud, catch mudfish and grab beetles. His short legs would also try to climb trees. Even if he couldn't climb even one step, he would still keep climbing and climbing. Therefore, that handsome and cute face of his was never clean. Rue Rue was still happily smiling, as if showing off a treasure. He grabbed a long, black mudfish and ran toward Jiang Muming. "Mommy, Mudfish." Seeing the little thing, Jiang Muming took a step back. "Don't come near me." Rue Rue ran to her and said sweetly, "I give Mommy." Looking at the struggling mudfish, Jiang Muming swallowed. "You just keep it yourself. I don't want it." "Mommy-want," Rue Rue said. As his black, chubby hand reached out toward Jiang Muming. Jiang Muming was completely against it. Who wanted such an ugly mudfish? Wanting to give it to her, Rue Rue suddenly had an idea. He directly threw the mudfish at Jiang Muming. "Ah!" Jiang Muming screamed in fright, along with a roar. "Qin Jiangyin." The next second, the toddler's little legs started moving as he began running around the yard. "You little brat, you're trying to scare me to death. Just wait until I spank you." "Mommy fierce. Run." Seeing that he was about to be caught and spanked, the little guy saw Qin Muye entering the house, and he ran over, directly hugging his leg. "Daddy, save me. Mommy is going to hit me." Looking at the dirty little guy, and not knowing where to touch him, Qin Muye pinched his cheeks. "Did you make Mommy angry again?" "I wouldn't dare make her angry, you're so brave." Jiang Muming put her hands on her hips, her beautiful face puffed up with anger. "This troublemaker is trying to scare me to death. If you have the guts, let go of your dad's leg." Rue Rue shook his head, answering with great backbone, "No guts." Jiang Muming was amused by his expression. Rue Rue was the kind of person who was useless, but loved to get into trouble. Qin Muye squatted down, brushed off the dirt on Rue Rue's body, and said gently, "Rue Rue, you can't bully Mommy, or Daddy won't like you anymore." Rue Rue waved his hands, his face full of seriousness. "I didn't bully her." "I don't believe you." Rue Rue gave Mommy mudfish. Cute, Rue said, blinking his big eyes with a serious expression. Qin Muye picked up Rue. If mommy doesn't like it, then don't give it to her. Give her something that she likes. Hearing this, Rue blinked his eyes and put his arms around Qin Muye's neck. Mommy likes daddy. Rue also likes him. I won't give him away. Jiang Muming's face flushed red. This little guy was really something. Qin Muye chuckled, holding Rue with one hand and taking Jiang Muming's hand with the other. Daddy loves mommy. I belong to her. Rue felt depressed, but Jiang Muming was cheerful. Qin Muye looked at Jiang Muming with tender eyes. Let's go. Let's go eat. Okay. Jiang Muming put her fingers through his fingers, their hands intertwining, and then they walked toward the house together. Rue looked at Jiang Muming and Qin Muye's loving behavior and showed his little teeth, smiling brightly.